Chapter 2689. What 3-day deadline? Bah! This great aunt is in a bad mood, so I won't give it. I must fully support my wife when she causes trouble. The Crown Prince's eyes lit up, and he turned to order Huifeng. Go invite the capital governor over. Also, bring the group of accountants this Crown Prince asked you to find over. Mu Jingfeng was so angry that he fell backwards, simply wanting to vomit blood. He truly didn't expect that this black-hearted couple would really dare to escalate the matter. Were they shameless? They forced his father to hand over his mother's private property as soon as they returned to the Mu family. Would it be good for their reputation if word got out? Mu Xingqian expressed no objection. He was thoroughly disappointed in this father of his. Looking at his father's appearance, he was truly unwilling and simply didn't want to return his mother's dowry shop to his younger sister. If it weren't for his brother-in-law's status and the fact that he had the power to get it back, if it were someone else, they would probably have to swallow their anger and squander it. The capital governor's speed was surprisingly fast. In less than half an hour, he hurriedly rushed over with several dozen guards. This person's surname was Chao, and he was known as Stubborn Chao. One had to know that this name had its origin. Because this official Chao was very upright and plain-spoken, he repeatedly went against the imperial family, so everyone called him Stubborn Chao. There was once when Linchuan Prince's heir returned to the capital and rode his horse on Changle Street, injuring 5 commoners. Stubborn Chao was rather swift and decisive, and after catching someone, he lifted their robes and publicly flogged them 50 times. This angered Linchuan Prince so much that he entered the palace that very night to sue Stubborn Chao, accusing him of disrespecting the imperial family. The emperor was so annoyed by Linchuan Prince that he removed Stubborn Chao from his position and sent him to prison. Unexpectedly, the capital's newly appointed capital governor couldn't suppress those silk pants in the imperial city at all, causing the capital to be in a mess. In his anger, the emperor released Stubborn Chao again. Stubborn Chao was sent to and out of prison 5 times and removed from his position 4 times, yet he was still firmly seated in this position. Thus, everyone understood that the emperor was still rather fond of the Stubborn Chao right now. Jojo was also rather fond of the Stubborn Chao. As soon as Lord Chao took the deed from Jojo, he put on a businesslike expression and ordered the mistress's family to move out of the house immediately. Not only that, he also ordered them to pay a fine for occupying the house for a period of time. Seeing the little white flower beside Mu Jingfeng sobbing uncontrollably, Xiao Mu felt greatly satisfied. She did not know why, but she felt that this little white flower's face was not pleasing to the eye. Now that she had taken a closer look, she realized that the little white flower's eyes were quite similar to hers. It was said that her eyes were very similar to her mother's. Could it be that Mu Jingfeng still liked her mother? Arbor felt as if he had eaten a fly. Stubborn Chao was very efficient in his work. He directly had Mu Jingfeng take out all the relevant accounts on the dowry list. Mu Qingya still hadn't recovered from the shock of her husband having an affair, and now she was ordered to hand over the account book by Chao Jieto. Her face was pale and her body was on the verge of collapsing. She could fall to the ground at any moment. When Mu Rochuan rushed in, the gilded garden was in a mess. She hurriedly squeezed to her mother's side and glared at Arbor's group. "What are you doing? What did mother do wrong? Why are you angering her like this?" Stubborn Chao calmly said, "The government is handling official matters. Unrelated people, please step aside." Shen Mu Qingya struggled to stand up. "Lord Chao, don't worry. I'll have my subordinates sort out the accounts." Chapter 2690. It's just that there are a lot of accounts. I'm afraid this isn't something that can be sorted out in a day or 2. It's fine. This Crown Prince has plenty of manpower here. The Crown Prince indifferently said. With a wave of his hand, he called in the 100 or so accountants waiting outside the door. This was really stabbing Mu Jingfeng's chest with hundreds of knives. Mu Jingfeng's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Chao Jieto had an indifferent expression as he silently gave the Crown Prince a thumbs up in his heart. As expected of my family's Crown Prince. He has connections and authority. Beautifully done. The most annoying thing was this kind of coward who seized his wife's private property. He didn't know how to rely on himself and only stared at his wife's things. What a good-for-nothing fellow. How could he be the Mu family's head? Chao Jieto disdained him in his heart, but he maintained an upright and plain-spoken expression. Since His Highness the Crown Prince has already prepared the manpower, then let's start work as soon as possible. Although there are a lot of accounts from over a decade, we still have to calculate everything clearly. We have enough manpower. Sir Jojo was expressionless, but he gave Sir Chao several thumbs up in his heart. Sure enough, Sir Chao was very impressive. If he had known earlier, he would have asked him to step forward earlier. That way, she wouldn't have to spend all day chattering with Mu Jingfeng. Sir Chao, you've worked hard, Mu Jingfeng said when he saw his sinful daughter talking to Chao Jieto. I reckon that, with so many people, we can settle the accounts in one night. Let's go to Yulan Court for a drink to pass the time. There's no trouble, no trouble. Sir Chao was simply overwhelmed by this favor and hastily nodded. This official will naturally comply. Another few hundred knives stabbed Mu Jingfeng's chest. If vomiting blood now could be of any use, he would rather vomit a whole vat of blood first. This little bastard actually invited Chao Jieto to eat and drink, planning to sit and wait for the results to come out in one night? This sinful daughter, sinful daughter. He didn't have any path of retreat at all. Arbor summoned the head accountant. Calculate properly. Be on time. I'll treat you guys to snacks later. After you're done, I'll give you 10 times the salary. Tycoon Crown Princess. The 100 or so accountants' faces instantly bloomed with smiles. They nodded repeatedly and said in unison, Thank you, Crown Princess. This one will definitely work hard to settle the accounts. I won't let down the Crown Prince and Crown Princess trust. Thus, the gilded garden was brightly lit, and the sound of the abacus could be heard throughout the night. These over 100 accountants were the best of the best in the imperial capital. Apart from a portion of them being the Crown Prince's own, the rest were borrowed from the various monarch residences and aristocratic families. Everyone wanted to show their faces in front of the Crown Prince and Crown Princess, so they worked hard to settle their debts and work hard. That night, other than taking a short break to eat some snacks and tea, he didn't sleep at all. His hands didn't even stop playing with the abacus. By the time it was 7 in the morning, the accounts of the past years had been calculated clearly and neatly stacked on one side according to the various trades and professions. By the time Kai Xiu came to Yulan Garden to inform them that the accounts had been sorted out, Arbor had just finished his breakfast with Emolien, Mu Xingchen, Lord Chao, and the others. He happily followed Kai Xiu to Gilded Garden. She ordered the servants to carry the breakfast to the Gilded Garden. As soon as she entered, she said with a stoic face, Everyone has worked hard all night. Everyone, please go to the side hall and have some breakfast. Mr. Shi, you've worked hard and stay behind. Mr. Shi was the head accountant and also Emolien's subordinate. He bowed and saluted, then retreated to the Crown Prince's side. Chapter 2691. Kai Chi nimbly ran in and called for people to bring out a few armchairs for Emolien, Arbor, and the others to sit down. After the two happily sat down, they looked at the ashen-faced Mu Jingfeng. With one look, they felt that Mu Jingfeng seemed to have aged 3 to 5 years in a single night from his worry. Wasn't it just a loss of money? Was there a need to be so distressed? Arbor disdainfully pursed his lips. Mr. Shi stepped forward and spread out a sorted ledger, reading, According to actual calculations, just the Kaidai Pavilion, Precious Painting Workshop, and Despondent Pavilion alone have earned over 10 million spirit coins every year for the past 15 years. With the business flourishing in recent years, just the Kaidai Pavilion's profit alone reached 20 million spirit coins last year. If it's calculated in terms of gold, silver, and other ordinary items, the value is even higher. There are vast fields in the northern part of the city, and the annual profit can reach about 800,000 spirit coins. As for the 3 residences in the southern part of the city, aside from one for Miss Chong-er, the other 2 are rented out to others. The annual rent is about 30,000 spirit coins. In addition, there are 14 shops in the western, southern, and northern parts of the city. Especially the medicine shop and talisman shop in the southern part of the city, their annual profit can reach 1 million spirit coins. There are 2 fields in the eastern suburbs of the city. The income is relatively low, and they can earn about 50,000 spirit coins every year. As for the 3 fields in the northern suburbs of the city, their income is rather high. They earn 300,000 spirit coins every year. In addition, the income has been rising year after year. With this, in the past 15 years, Mr. Shi picked up an abacus and quickly calculated. Excluding those expenses, the total net profit can reach at least 220 million spirit coins. Mu Jingfeng simply didn't know what this person was talking about. He only felt that his mouth was opening and closing, and every word seemed to be digging a bloody hole in his heart. 220 million spirit coins? Mu Qingya was helped to sit down. She also felt dizzy and was somewhat at a loss. Arbor nodded. Have you calculated the expenses of Mu Jingfeng's concubines and illegitimate children all these years? Yes, the crown princess. It's all calculated. Madame Mu's monthly salary is 20,000 spirit coins. Miss Mu's monthly salary is the same as young Master Mu's, 10,000 spirit coins. As for the Mu family's 4 concubines, each of them costs 3,000 spirit coins. The 3 concubine-born daughters each have a monthly salary of 5,000. There are a total of 74 servants in the main branch. Every month, they have to pay. Enough! Mu Jingfeng roared in anger. He felt that he had lost all his face today. The most hateful thing was, stubborn Chow was still drinking tea at the side, listening calmly in the midst of chaos. This kind of family matter was actually brought to the court. He had simply lost all his face, both inside and outside. Arbor mockingly glanced at Mu Jingfeng and smiled sarcastically. The Mu family's head is spending his ex-wife's dowry, yet he's quite unrestrained. Although the prices of goods in the Great Divine Prefecture were high, they were generally 5 times higher than the middle 6 prefectures. However, 100 spirit coins were enough for an ordinary family's daily living expenses. The monthly allowance that the Mu family head gave to the concubine was as high as 100 spirit coins a day. This did not include the clothes, shoes, socks, rouge, face powder, and gold and jade jewelry that were made for the 4 seasons every year. How could he have such a big face? How much is there in total? Have you calculated it yet? Arbor coldly asked. For the past 15 years, the main branch has given the masters a monthly allowance of more than 15 million spirit coins. Chapter 2692. There's also the 5 house renovations and expansions in the past 15 years, the 4 seasons worth of clothes and accessories for the masters and misses, the auction house's purchase of precious medicinal herbs, spirit tools, and so on. Shut up! Mu Jingfeng bellowed. He really wished he could go up and stuff Mr. Shi's mouth. The Mu family's eldest branch's expenses have been rising year by year, and it's very extravagant and wasteful. After some calculations, we've spent close to 90 million in the past 15 years. He really took her mother's dowry and ate her whole family without spitting out the bones. Arbor nodded. Mu Jingfeng was already trembling in anger. He pointed at Arbor and said, "Why, you unfilial daughter, unfilial daughter. If it weren't for your stepmother mediating and managing the shops all these years, would Kaidai Pavilion, Precious Painting Workshop, and Despondent Pavilion be as prosperous as they are today? Even if you snatch these 3 shops back, you won't be able to manage them well." Arbor swept her a disdainful glance. So what if I can't manage them well? I just like to smash them for fun, and it's none of your business. Lord Chow's face was taut as he inwardly gave the little crown princess a thumbs up. Well done. There was really no need to be polite to this stinky man who shamelessly usurped his wife's business. Mu Jingfeng was so angry that his face turned pale, and he felt dizzy. Why you unfilial daughter. Enough nonsense. Arbor waved his hand and turned to look at Mu Qingya. He said indifferently, "It's true that Madame Mu has managed the business well all these years, but the things you've taken from my mother aren't insignificant, right? You've spent 90 million in 15 years' worth of expenses so comfortably." Arbor coldly said, "Madame Mu, I'll give you an annual salary of 2 million. I'll give you 30 million for 15 years. Your Mu family's eldest branch spent 90 million on my mother, so you just have to spit out 60 million. In addition, you'll make a profit of 220 million, not a cent less. Prepare everything for me within 3 days. Otherwise, we'll meet His Majesty in the Golden Hall. Just you wait and see. Mu Jingfeng's lips were trembling in anger. Why you? You're simply making trouble for no reason. When did we use your mother's money for our daily expenses? It's not like I don't have any businesses. Why you, intolerable bullying, intolerable bullying? Why are you so sure that their daily expenses are Long Chiyun's money? Moreover, didn't they just say that they made a profit of 220 million? Even if he spent 60 million spirit coins, no, the total price should be 220 million spirit coins. Why was there a need for another 60 million on top of the 220 million? Wasn't this extra 60 million just plain robbery? Did he think he was a fool? Mu Jingfeng trembled in anger. You know very well whether it's my mother's money or not. Xiao Mu gazed at him coldly and declared, in short, you can't give me a single cent less than the 280 million spirit coins compensation. With that, he turned to look at the capital governor. Lord Chao, I need you to look over the account books. What do you think of the way I've handled it? Very reasonable. Lord Chao took the account book and looked at it. He quickly praised. The crown princess does things flawlessly. This official is truly impressed. You bootlicker. Mu Jingfeng was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. His eyes were bulging, and he was panting heavily. Mo Lien was also speechless. Who could come and tell him if this stubborn Chao's temperament had changed? Who said that stubborn Chao was hard to talk to? How easy was he to talk to his Jojo? Chapter 2693. Stubborn Chao muttered to himself for a bit before saying, however, for such a large sum of spirit coins, 3 days of preparation is a bit too rushed. Crown Princess, how about we extend the time limit to 6 days? This official guarantees that the debt collection team will smoothly collect all of these debts. This stubborn Chao was clearly a very reliable person when it came to doing things. Arbor immediately gave him face and nodded expressionlessly. Then, I'll have to trouble Lord Chao to take care of it. Not at all, not at all. This official should do it. The two chatted happily, causing Prince Mo to find it somewhat funny. After the commotion, Arbor sent someone to send Lord Chao off, then held the crown prince's hand and left together. Before leaving Gilded Garden, Lord Jojo said, prepare well. Then, there was nothing else. Just these 4 words angered Mu Jingfeng so much that he slumped into his chair. Lord Chao swiftly set up a debt collection team led by the governors Wu Xiaoyin. He organized 17 to 18 subordinates and moved into the Mu estate that night. Before the next day, this matter had become the topic of conversation in the entire imperial capital. When everyone saw each other in tea houses and restaurants, they couldn't help but whisper, hey, did you hear? Family head Mu kept a mistress in his wife's dowry residence and was caught red-handed by eldest young Master Mu. She's already in the residence now. How could I not have heard? Look at how big the commotion has become. I heard that the mistress, who's like a little white flower, has angered Madame Mu half to death. Tisk tsk, how pitiful. Family head Mu can even bear to hurt such a gentle and kind woman like Madame Mu. Oh, you don't understand, right? The old saying is absolutely correct. A wife is inferior to a concubine, and a concubine is inferior to a mistress. I didn't expect that the prim and proper family head Mu to be so dissolute in private. Someone immediately sneered, dissolute my ass. I think he's just shameless. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so brazen as to let his mistress into his wife's dowry residence. That's right. That's his wife's private property. How could he do that? No wonder the crown princess flew into a rage and ordered him to hand over his wife's dowry. Ha! I heard that the Mu family's patriarch is in a terrible fix these days. He's really unlucky. That's right, the officials of the capital government organized a debt collection team and directly entered the Mu family. I heard that you have to pay it back within 6 days. Ha! That's hilarious. Everyone gloated for a while. Anyway, the knife didn't fall on their heads, so they were especially happy to see other people being dug out with a blunt knife. In particular, That person was the patriarch of a great family that ordinary people like them could never hope to touch. Since he was so unlucky, everyone was happy to watch the show from the side. The mentality of some people was somewhat distorted. If you were living well, they would lower their heads and fawn over you. Once you fell from your high and mighty position and were unlucky, they would mock you even more merrily than those who usually couldn't be bothered with you. The next day, Mu Jingfeng had people go out on the streets to ask around. He didn't know how much the matter had escalated, but he was so angry that he nearly died. Mu Jingfeng hid in the court alone and threw a fit. No matter who he looked at, no one was pleasing to the eye. Madame Mu also felt extremely wronged. Who did she offend? Chapter 2694. While everyone was scolding Mu Jingfeng, they couldn't help but mention her. The next day, Madame Mu fell ill after a sleepless night. She didn't leave her room in Gilded Garden and merely rested on the soft couch. The wet nurse, Nanny Chiu, was attending to her from the side, her eyes filled with heartache. She had always seen how hard Madame had worked all these years. Now that something like this happened, even if Madame didn't say anything, she must be feeling terrible in her heart. Madame! Song Lu angrily ran in and couldn't help but scold as soon as she entered. That little slut is here again. She's kneeling outside and begging for forgiveness. I told Bai Hui to chase her away. Madame Mu slightly raised her head and sighed. Bring her in. Madame. Song Lu angrily stomped her feet. Her madame was good at everything, but her personality was too kind. It was fine if she treated those old concubines well. Aside from concubine Huang, who gave birth to fourth Miss Mu Ro Yi, the other 3 concubines didn't have any children, so they couldn't be arrogant. The other 2 bedwarmers were of low status, so they were naturally controlled by Madame. However, this time, this little white flower, Cheong that Master brought back from outside, couldn't be compared to the previous ones. This Cheong was only 17 or 18 years old and had a delicate and gentle appearance. Most importantly, she already gave birth to a daughter for Master. Yesterday, Master named the little slut that the mistress gave birth to Mu Roshue. When Song Lu thought of this, she became even angrier. She felt that her madam wasn't worthy. Why was that mistress so rampant? Wasn't it all because she had Master's favor? Mu Qingya's brows were tinged with faint melancholy, and she softly sighed. It's fine as long as Master likes her. If he had brought her home earlier, there wouldn't be so much trouble today. A large part of the reason for her anger wasn't that Mu Jingfeng found a mistress outside, but that he had to hide it from her, causing the matter to reach this point where it couldn't be resolved. She already knew that Mu Jingfeng was talented, intelligent, and affectionate. She was an ordinary person who found it difficult to cultivate. It was all thanks to Mu Jingfeng's trust and love for her that she was able to sit in the position of the family's madam. How could she dare to ask for anything else? She only hoped that her husband could be with her for a long time. As for the rest, it's fine as long as my husband likes it. Song Lu almost cried out when she saw her mistress compromised like this. She couldn't help but resent the little white flower kneeling outside the door even more. If it wasn't for that bitch, would Madame be so sick that she couldn't even get out of bed today? Yuan Xiong'er walked in, swaying with each step like a little white flower. When she saw Madame Mu, she knelt on the ground with a plop and confessed in tears. Madame Mu naturally wouldn't argue with a mistress, but she wasn't in the mood to comfort her. After waking her up, he simply instructed her to stay in the residence with ease, and then sent her away. As soon as Yuan Xiong'er left the Gilded Garden, her face was twisted with anger. She thought about how she had knelt in that woman's courtyard early in the morning, acting humble and submissive, wanting to get along with her peacefully. She didn't expect that he wouldn't give her any favors at all. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have acted like that and knelt in that woman's courtyard early in the morning. Thinking of Mu Qingya's arrogant attitude just now, Yuan Xiong'er felt uncomfortable all over. So what if she was the madam of the family? She looked down on her so much. Even if she didn't fight for a bun, she had to fight for her dignity and make her regret in the past. Chapter 2695. Arbor sent people to the Gilded Garden and his father's courtyard to inquire about the situation. When he heard that the debt collection team's work was proceeding in an orderly manner, Sir Jojo was very happy. He let Kai Shou gather all the accountants who had worked all night and had enough rest the night before. In a good mood, he gave everyone 20 times their wages. Originally, they had agreed on 10 times the pay, but now it was doubled again. Everyone was overjoyed. Reaching out to take the 2,000 spirit coins that the Crown Princess prepared for each person, everyone's face was blooming with joy. After giving out the wages, Arbor let everyone leave. Even if some of them couldn't control their mouths and spread the news that the Crown Princess would take over a lot of dowry shops, it didn't matter. The little rich lady was not afraid of people talking. In any case, she had inherited thousands of acres of fertile land, 5 prosperous shops, and the half-moon cliff from Prince Kong. The news had already spread far and wide in the capital. As for who spread the news, it was easy to guess. It must be Princess Kang's adopted daughter, Miss Lu Iran. Not convinced? Just hold it in. Who asked Sir Jojo to be so likable? After so many days, this and that, the Crown Princess had already transformed from a little village girl into a big winner who had reached the pinnacle of life, so be it. She didn't care anyway. Early in the morning, Sir Jojo, who was living a very happy and comfortable life, sat down cross-legged and cultivated for a while. Suddenly, he heard Chocho say to him, Master Silver, Qi Shen, and the rest have all come out of seclusion and are probably going to advance in rank. Let them go out and advance in rank. Otherwise, the spiritual energy in Paradise Planet will be used up. Sir Chocho had collected so much spiritual energy with great difficulty. He couldn't let those little bastards advance in rank and cause a disaster. The stingy Sir Chocho was secretly scheming in his heart. Arbor was so smart. He naturally knew what it was thinking and couldn't help but find it funny. Okay. It was good to advance in rank. Let Shen and the rest go to the Mu family's back mountain, where there was a lot of spiritual energy in heaven and earth. They would naturally advance in rank. It was also good for his cultivation. A white light flashed. Qi Shen, Duanmu Qing, and little Fatty appeared beside her. Without a second word, Arbor called Huifeng to bring them to the spacious area behind the Mu clan's mountain to advance in rank. Qi Shen, Duanmu Qing, and the others had been in seclusion for a long time this time. Their cultivation levels would definitely improve greatly. Just thinking about it made her happy for her friends. She was happier than if she had advanced. Mr. Jojo pushed open the door and walked out. He looked in the direction where his friends had left and pursed his lips. This was the scene that Emolien saw when she walked over. The little guy was standing at the door under the sunlight. His eyes were sparkling and he was extremely adorable. He flew to her side and pulled her into his arms. He kissed her soft little cheek. Jojo, what's the good news? Shen and the others have come out. Crown Prince Mo the Great immediately harumphed. How could this be considered a good thing? Qi Shen and the rest of the troublesome fellows had come out. This meant that there would be even more people who would fight with him for the little one's attention in the future. Arbor blinked and glanced at Prince Mo. Shen and the others went to the back mountain to advance in rank. Okay. Prince Mo forced himself to be happy. That's perfect. There's a banquet in 5 days. Let them participate as well. Chapter 2696. Sir Jojo didn't have any objections. In any case, she would go wherever her husband went. If it was a banquet, then so be it. At worst, she would just wear her red battle clothes and fight to her heart's content. Emolien looked at her expression and wanted to laugh. Jojo, what are you thinking about? Arbor raised her head and glanced at him. Nothing. Emolien lowered his head and rubbed against her little head. That little expression of yours clearly means that you want to wear your red battle clothes and go fight. Arbor couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This person was truly shrewd, he could see through everything. Emolien pulled her little hand and said, Don't worry. We're just going to attend a banquet. The main thing is that we've been back for a few days, so it's time to meet them. Arbor expressionlessly nodded her little head. Prince Mo knew that she wasn't very interested in these things. so after casually saying a few more words, he pulled her outside. The eldest branch's main family courtyard had been quite lively these past few days. The debt collection team had been urging them to gather the 280 million spirit coins as compensation, causing blisters to form on Mu Jingfeng's lips and his heart to burn with anxiety. Old Master Mu expressed that he was willing to fork out 50 million spirit coins to help compensate the first branch. The second branch, fourth branch, and fifth branch pretended to be deaf and mute and didn't say anything. Old third, old sixth, and old seventh weren't married, so they couldn't manage the affairs of their eldest brother's branch. Thus, in the entire Mu family, the first branch fought restlessly every day. The second branch, fourth branch, and fifth branch looked on, expressing their helplessness. Mu Jingfeng spent 3 days in this damned sun, each day feeling like a year. On the fourth day, the direction of the rumors outside suddenly changed. No longer were the rumors of the Mu family's family head's romantic affairs. This rumor suddenly rushed to the crown prince consort's head again when Kai Chi angrily ran in to inform them of the rumors. Arbor was lying under the warm sunlight, drawing talismans one by one. They said that Xiao Xing girl was originally someone from the crown princess's room. After being chased out, he suddenly turned into a terrifying monster and attacked the crown princess. They even said that it was because the crown princess had returned that the monsters followed her. That day on Changle Street, the holy maiden of the Sun Moon Temple said that the crown princess was the source of the disaster. They said that it was all true. It was precisely because the crown princess returned to the Mu family that a monster appeared in the Mu family. Arbor's hand that was holding the talisman brush paused for a moment. He raised his eyes to look at Kai Chi's flushed little face. Is this matter being spread all over the streets? Kai Chi was so angry that she nodded vigorously. This servant heard about it when I went out to buy things. Arbor nodded. Huifeng, what are your orders, Crown Princess? Go and inform Wu Xiaoyin that I, the Crown Princess, will receive 280 million spirit coins as compensation tonight. Also, go and tell Mr. Shi to prepare an accountant. Tomorrow morning we will go to each store to arrange for people. Also, are the senior servants in charge ready? If so, we will set off together tomorrow. Everything is ready, Crown Princess. Huifeng silently lit another candle for Mu Jingfeng. Regardless of whether Mu Jingfeng was the one behind this rumor or not, from the looks of it now, the young crown prince consort was willfully pinning this debt on Mu Jingfeng. That's all for now. Kai Xiu, Kai Chi, Huifeng, tell Li Yi to stand guard at the court's entrance. If anyone dares to barge in, don't be polite. Just kill them. Yes. Huifeng nodded and immediately left to carry out the order. Chapter 2697. Soon, an 18 to 19-year-old girl dressed in black with a curvaceous figure stood at Yulan Court's entrance with a cold expression, holding a sword horizontally in her hand. Less than a quarter of an hour later, a commotion broke out in front of Yulan Court's entrance. 2 fierce-looking old nannies came over with fierce expressions, saying that they were under family head's orders to invite Miss Chow to the main courtyard. Li Ye's face was cold as she blocked them. One of the old nannies started cursing indistinctly. Before she could finish cursing, her head was separated from her body. The other was scared witless. How could she dare to linger at Yulan Court's entrance? She scrambled back to Mu Jingfeng's main courtyard to report this matter. Mu Jingfeng angrily smashed a teacup on the ground. Wu Xiaoyin also angrily smashed a cup. This official is under the Crown Princess orders to legally and reasonably collect the debt. Family head Mu, please cooperate. Don't waste everyone's time. Now that the Crown Princess wants to collect the debt early, it's also reasonable. If you don't have enough spirit coins, please open the treasury. We have a professional accounting team that will convert the treasures obtained from the auction into spirit coins for you to calculate. Mu Jingfeng was so angry that he wanted to fling his sleeves and leave. Wu Xiaoyin was also enraged. If family head Mu doesn't cooperate, then we can only request the Purple Forest Guard to forcefully carry out the settlement. Fuck. Why don't you try saying that again? Mu Jingfeng's eyes were spitting fire as he glared at Wu Xiaoyin, as if he was looking at an enemy. He pointed a finger at the youth's face. Why you? Very good. This official believes that I have inherited Lord Chow's style. It's indeed very good. Bah! When your family's Lord Chow sees the crown princess, what kind of style is there? What kind of style is there? He's just a bootlicker. All right? Wu Xiaoyin coldly looked at Mu Jingfeng and said, Family head Mu, I advise you not to struggle anymore. Cooperate properly with handing over the spirit coins and resources. The sooner the settlement is completed, the sooner our debt collection team can leave the Mu family. Mu Jingfeng was so angry that his entire body trembled. But looking at the situation now, if he did not open the main branch's treasury, this matter really wouldn't be over. Mu Liang, Mu Jingfeng roared. Take them there. Keep a close eye on them. If there's even a single cent missing from the spiritual tools and medicinal herbs, I'll hold you responsible. Yes. Mu Liang couldn't help but sigh. Father and daughter, why did they have to create such a scene where the two enemies' eyes blazed with hatred? If he had a daughter, he would definitely dote on her. Why did he have to do this? Sai Mu family head swallowed a mouthful of blood in exasperation. With a dark and handsome face, he walked straight in the direction of Yulon Court. This rebellious girl, this rebellious girl. He stopped halfway and angrily punched a tree, breaking a small sapling. After Arbor finished drawing over 100 talismans, he stored all the talismans into a purple storage talisman. He expressionlessly sat on the soft couch and looked at the black-clothed girl in front of him. Find someone from the night pavilion and spread the news. Say that Mu Jingfeng is suffering because of his pride, and now he has fallen to the point where he has to use auction items to exchange for spirit coins to repay his debt. After you're done with the matter above, go to the restaurant, catch a few ruffians who are spreading rumors, and directly kill them. Then, very gently tell everyone that they are rumor-mongers and ask everyone not to believe in rumors. Don't scare others. Got it? Everyone? Chapter 2698. You told Li Yi to go directly to the restaurant and find the culprits to execute them on the streets. You even said that you had to tell everyone gently and don't scare them. How could that not freaking scare them? Who wouldn't be so scared that their parents wouldn't recognize them after witnessing the death of the rumor-mongers? Xiao Mu creased her brows and said, After you kill them, throw those main culprits who started the rumors into the central plaza. Remember to tie them there so that everyone can see what they look like. You have to politely tell everyone that these people are rumor-mongers and deserve to die. Got it? Li Yi nodded with a deadpan expression. Crown Princess, this subordinate understands. Arbor nodded, but still worriedly reminded. Remember not to scare them. Eunuch Chun, who was standing at the side with his head bowed, stumbled and nearly fell to the ground. Crown Princess, are you really not here to make a fool of yourself? The Crown Princess had a solemn expression. Seeing that Li Yi understood her words, she nodded and waved her hand to send her off. After the sun set, the Crown Prince finally extricated himself from the Emperor's place. Before he could ask about the rumor, he saw Li Yi walk in. Greetings to the Crown Prince, Crown Princess. How did it go? The young Crown Princess asked with a serious expression. Well done, Li Yi answered. Eunuch Chun felt like laughing. Could it be that this subordinate resembled her master? This new lass called Li Yi had a stoic face that somewhat resembled the young Crown Prince Consort. Her words and actions were also short and concise. This subordinate followed the Crown Princess's instructions and had the night pavilion's members spread the news. Then we went to a large restaurant in the imperial capital where people from all walks of life gathered. Sure enough, this subordinate caught 3 ruffians who were spreading the rumor that the Crown Princess was the source of the disaster. This subordinate didn't scare them. This subordinate only drew my sword and splattered their blood on the spot. But the strange thing was, before this subordinate could explain, the people in the restaurant screamed and ran away. The Crown Prince's mouth twitched silently. This subordinate swears that this subordinate really didn't scare anyone. The little Crown Princess nodded. Li Yi said with a cold face. This subordinate will throw these 3 ruffians into the central plaza and hang them on the pillar next to the mission board. I didn't expect that even the people in the square would run away this time. I only had time to say that they were spreading rumors before I could finish. Everyone had disappeared. I'm sure I didn't scare anyone. The little crown princess nodded again. Prince Imo was having a hard time trying to hold back his laughter. Li Yi then said, "This subordinate had no choice but to hang a sign on the ruffian's body to explain what happened. I believe that anyone with eyes can see it." "How did you write it?" This subordinate writes, "Those who spread rumors and slandered the crown princess shall die." The little crown princess took out a small porcelain bottle from her inner world and handed it to Li Yi. She patted her shoulder and said, "Not bad. Here's your reward." Prince Imo held his forehead and couldn't help but burst into laughter. The little crown princess and Li Yi turned to look at him at the same time and cursed inwardly. Why is the crown prince laughing over such a serious matter? It's been hard on you. Go back and rest. The little crown princess had Li Yi go back. That night, the rumors about the crown princess all disappeared without a trace. Mu Jingfeng's glorious deeds were once again brought up, and the streets and alleys were abuzz with it. The next morning, the crown princess brought a group of people and headed to Kaidai Pavilion in a grandiose manner. Chapter 2699. Late that night, the first branch of the Mu family finally collected 280 million in compensation and handed it all to Wu Xiaoyin. In addition to the old man who paid 50 million spirit coins, the Mu family head reluctantly took out 100 million spirit coins. The other 130 million was made up with spirit stones, medicinal herbs, spiritual energy, forging materials, and other things of equal value. It can't be said that the first branch of the Mu family really paid a lot of money this time. Wu Xiaoyin found that the young crown princess looked particularly calm when she received the compensation. Looking at the equivalent of 280 million spirit coins, her eyebrows didn't even move. Indifferent, magnificent. She's really a role model that I admire. Wu Xiaoyin silently said that the crown princess was too powerful 3 times in his heart, and he planned to go back and report everything to Lord Chao. Lord Chao was very right to have no integrity to support the young crown princess. Since the young crown princess returned to the capital, those who stood opposite her, which one of them had a good ending? King Jianping? It was useless to hug the great emperor's thigh, and he was still slapped down by the crown princess. The crown prince of Jianping was beaten up by the king of Jianping, and he was still lying in bed and couldn't get up. The Long family, the Gu family, and the young crown princess didn't even have a chance to meet, and they were already trembling from the fine. The Sun Moon Temple could be considered famous in the 3 regions. The holy nun of the temple was slapped by the young crown princess until her parents couldn't recognize her. To bring the holy nun home, they also had to pay a corresponding large compensation this time. It was the Mu family head's turn. The extent of bleeding could be said to be not a great loss of vitality. After this incident, the Mu family head was afraid that the entire first branch of the Mu family would be depressed for who knows how long. How could he be so extravagant when it came to spending in the future? Wu Xiaoyin concluded that people wouldn't die if they didn't court death. Therefore, it was better to weigh their own strength and see if they should court death. The next morning, the crown prince consort, who was feeling refreshed, woke up early in the morning. She had someone set up a carriage and brought along a group of stewards, nannies, and accountants to Kaidai brothel. The crown prince was called into the palace by the great emperor early in the morning. Jojo didn't want the man to be involved in this matter. She could handle it herself, so there was no need for Prince to do it. There were about 20 to 30 horse-drawn carriages, carrying dozens of accountants, hundreds of stewards, nannies, servants, and so on. When the group of people left the Mu residence, it naturally caused a huge commotion. When someone reported this to Madame Mu, Mu Qingya was dumbfounded. The crown princess' first stop is Kaidai Loft. Song Lu stomped her feet and shouted angrily, "The crown princess is completely looking down on you, madam." Mu Qingya couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was originally Sister Chu Yun's business, so it's reasonable for the crown princess to want to take it back. However, how much would the crown princess know about this business? He was worried that the little girl would squander away all of Long Chuyun's shops. Song Lu couldn't help but stomp her feet and shout resentfully, "My dear madam, you're so kind-hearted that you're still worried about her at this time. She really doesn't look down on you, madam. Mu Qingya glared at her. I'm originally managing these businesses on behalf of the Crown Princess. Isn't it natural for the Crown Princess to want to take them back? Don't say such things again in the future. Go inform Qing Yang and the others to have those stewards receive the Crown Princess well. Don't neglect her. Chapter 2700. Qing Yang greets the Crown Princess. A middle-aged woman wearing a blue and white cloth jacket with neat features led a group of steward nannies out of Kaidai Veranda's main entrance. She bowed to the Crown Princess, who was leading a group of people, and stopped majestically in front of Kaidai Veranda's main entrance. The young Crown Princess alighted from the carriage and expressionlessly nodded at the woman. Li Yi expressionlessly followed behind. Following closely behind the Crown Princess were Kai Xiu and Kai Qi, who entered Kaidai Veranda. Serve tea to the Crown Princess. No need to trouble yourself. The young Crown Princess waved her hand and randomly found a seat to sit down. It was early in the morning, and Kaidai Veranda wasn't open for business yet. Thus, there were only a few steward nannies and waiters in the shop. The shopkeeper was a rather snobbish man in his 50s. Although he was doing his best to suppress the anger in his chest, his gaze towards the young Crown Princess was very unfriendly. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the shopkeeper. She knew that the shopkeepers of Kaidai Veranda and Precious Painting Workshop weren't in power. Qing Yang, on the other hand, was one of the two most popular people by Mu Qingya's side. She was in charge of Kaidai Veranda and Precious Painting Workshop behind the scenes. Even the shopkeeper was extremely courteous when he saw her. Shopkeeper who? Arbor called out. An old shopkeeper surnamed who immediately walked out and respectfully bowed. This old servant is here. From today onwards, shopkeeper who will take over all of Kaidai Veranda's affairs. Arbor didn't waste time with them and directly issued the order. She pointed at the flustered and exasperated shopkeeper of Kaidai Veranda. Mr. Hong. The accountant surnamed Hong also immediately walked forward and bowed. From today onwards, Mr. Hong will be in charge of the accounts. You can settle this month's salary with Mr. Hong. Based on what? The shopkeeper of Kaidai Veranda glared and roared angrily with a flushed face. Based on the fact that this Crown Princess dislikes you, Arbor said coldly. Is this reason sufficient? Everyone was speechless. The little Crown Princess was indeed a powerful person. With just one sentence, the old shopkeeper was rendered speechless. His entire face was flushed red, and his blood vessels were about to burst. Qing Yang suppressed her anger and hurriedly replied in a steady voice. Crown Prince Consort, you're not familiar with Kaidai Veranda's business. If you rashly take over everything here, I'm afraid it will be a great blow to your future business. What does it have to do with you? Sunyang froze and suddenly felt like she couldn't continue the conversation. What was wrong with the Crown Princess? When you talk to her, she's always choking. When you try to reason with her, she won't listen to reason at all. Her behavior is simply too much. You just need to hand over the keys to the accountant and the manager. Arbor said coldly. Didn't your madam tell you that I, the Crown Princess, am bringing someone to hand over today? If you don't know, then invite your madam over. I, the Crown Princess, will have a good chat with her. Qing Yang was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She suppressed the anger in her heart and was unable to react for a long time. Crown Princess, can you be reasonable? Qing Yang suppressed her anger and tried to talk to the Crown Princess in a calm voice. How am I unreasonable? Arbor looked at her coldly and turned to look at Li Yi and the rest. I'm unreasonable? Li Yi drew her sword and said coldly. Since you guys won't listen to Crown Princess reasoning, then listen to Li Ye's reasoning. Everyone took a step back and stared at Li Yi as if they were facing a great enemy. Chapter 2701. The young Crown Princess said expressionlessly, I'm very reasonable. Eunuch-chan, who had followed them into Kaidai Pavilion, couldn't help but twitch his mouth. I, the Crown Princess, am not here to ask for a handover. Get your facts straight. The young Crown Princess said coldly, I'm here to convey my order. I want you to complete the handover by today. Do you understand? The old shopkeeper of Kaidai Pavilion was so angry that he almost jumped out of his body. As the shopkeeper of Kaidai Pavilion, his monthly salary was as high as 80,000 spirit coins. Where else could you work these days to get such a high monthly salary? How could he be willing to take a few months' salary and then be miserably chased away by others? The old shopkeeper looked at Qing Yang, who was beside him, for help. Although Qing Yang was also very angry, there was nothing she could do. The crown princess insisted on this and even brought people here to hand over the work. What could she do? The deed to Kaidai Pavilion's shop was clearly the young crown prince consort's property. How could she openly snatch it? She was so angry that her head hurt, but there was nothing she could do. Qing Yang took a few deep breaths and could only look at the young crown princess and say, "Crown princess, isn't it a bit too childish to complete the handover in one day?" The only thing she could do now was to drag things out. She had to drag things out first. Qing Yang was very unwilling to hand over the Kaidai Pavilion, which she had worked so hard to take care of, to someone else to manage. When Kaidai Pavilion was half dead in the past, she and her madam had taken care of the property conscientiously and racked their brains to make Kaidai Pavilion big. The young crown princess didn't do anything. Just because she inherited her mother's dowry, she could take over all the property and enjoy the success she had now. The crown princess glanced at Qing Yang coldly. She knew that she would definitely be stopped when she came to hand over the handover. Mu Qingya's words were pleasant to hear, but her subordinates didn't do anything practical. Their attitude of making excuses annoyed her. Today, settle the accounts with Mr. Hong. Complete the handover of all the work in Kaidai Pavilion with shopkeeper who, the young crown prince consort said expressionlessly. Don't try to play dumb and fool me. If you think I'm young and easy to bully, Arbor glanced at Li Yi. Li Yi immediately unsheathed her sword and slashed at the black wooden table beside her. With a chi sound, the table broke into pieces. Everyone in the shop turned pale and shrank back hurriedly. The setting of drawing a sword at the slightest disagreement was simply too terrifying. You can try the sword in my hand. Li Yi replied expressionlessly. Qing Yang's heart trembled slightly, and she took a step back with trembling steps. Her eyes flickered as she looked at the crown prince consort in front of her. She took a breath and bowed, saying, "Qing Yang understands. Today's matter had to be handed over regardless of whether she wanted to or not. If she didn't give in, according to the little crown princess's usual style of doing things, she really might execute all these rebellious people. Why should she feel sorry for her own life?" Qing Yang turned her head and saw that the old shopkeeper still wanted to make a fuss. She glared at him. "Go hand over the handover." The old shopkeeper's surname was Zhang. When he heard this, his face immediately flushed red, and his eyes surged with anger and disappointment. Chapter 2702. He said with dissatisfaction, Qing Yang. This Zhang believes that he has been working hard for Kaidai Pavilion all these years. What reason do they have to not want me as the shopkeeper? Li Yi did not say anything and went forward to pick up the chattering shopkeeper. Lu Su, shopkeeper who? Coming. Shopkeeper who hurriedly followed after her. It was unknown how Li Yi taught the old shopkeeper a lesson, but very quickly, shopkeeper who began to smoothly hand over the business. Kaidai Pavilion's original accountant also followed Mr. Hong to hand over the accounts with a submissive expression. Arbor pointed to 2 nannies in charge and brought along 7 to 8 nimble and agile maids to check the original nannies and waiters in Kaidai Pavilion. Those waiters who served the dishes and washed the dishes did not need to be chased away. Arbor got people to hand over the important jobs such as the accountant. As for the people below, if they wanted to cause trouble, they were all chased away. Those who wanted to do a good job could stay. It did not matter. In less than an hour, the handover in Kaidai Pavilion was on track in an orderly manner. Arbor then brought the remaining people to another prosperous shop on Changle Street, Precious Painting Workshop. Before leaving, Arbor glanced at the silent Qing Yang and said indifferently, "Follow me to Precious Painting Workshop." Qing Yang was so angry that her chest hurt, but there was nothing she could do. Looking at the little crown princess attitude today, It seemed that she was going to go door to door and bring people to hand over these shops. Her movements were so fast that even if she wanted to do something behind the scenes, it was simply too late. Xiao Mu was particular about efficiency when doing things. He directly brought people to Precious Painting Workshop and after some pressure, left the new shopkeeper and accountant in Precious Painting Workshop. Qing Yang could not help but say indifferently, Precious Painting Workshop's business is not as simple as Kai Dai Pavilion. Kai Dai Pavilion was a place that sold food and drinks. If the little crown princess took over and continued to cook according to the previous recipes, she would be able to maintain her business. On the other hand, Precious Art Workshop specialized in selling jewelry and beauty products. Without those novel flower designs provided by Madame, without Madame's endless ideas, without Madame's handmade makeup powder and fragrances, let's see how many months this Zhenhua workshop can continue operating. The young crown prince consort took a tour around Zhenhua workshop. She had to admit that Madame Mu's business methods were quite unique. The Precious Painting Workshop was not like other shops where the shopkeeper sat in the main hall and locked the jewelry in the counter. The more precious items were brought to the second floor for a tour. The jewelry and makeup products in her shop were all hung on the wall, and it was a dazzling sight to behold. What kind of jewelry do you want? You just have to say the serial number, and a young and beautiful shop assistant will take it for you. The design and appearance were very trendy. Those precious pieces of jewelry were placed on several circular crystal shelves in the middle of the shop, separated by a layer of transparent protective cover, allowing people to admire their beauty as soon as they walked into the shop. The second floor only received some distinguished female guests. Those who could go up to the second floor were a symbol of status. When Arbor brought people in, there were already 2 or 3 young ladies in the shop, and they were choosing jewelry with their servant girls. When they saw Arbor, one of the ladies could not help but exclaim, "Is that the crown princess?" Chun Baojia through Jixiang, who was shouting beside her, and rolled her eyes impolitely, thinking, I really shouldn't have come out with this idiot. Chapter 2703. Jixiang's face turned slightly pale. She felt that there was something wrong with her. Seeing the little crown princess inexplicably made her heart flutter and her palms sweat slightly. This was a strange symptom that made one's complexion change at the sight of the crown princess. She really didn't dare to provoke this powerful little crown princess. Previously at General Zhong Li's residence, a group of noble ladies had teamed up to ridicule the crown princess. In the end, they were slapped in the face by the crown princess every time. Afterwards, these noble ladies secretly wanted to lure the stingers to sting the crown princess. In the end, the crown princess was unscathed, but they were stung by the stingers until they cried for their parents. The most terrifying thing was that a group of mosquitoes came out of the stingers. Not only did they emit flames, but they also exploded, causing them to cry for their parents. Several noble ladies' hair was burned off. Jixiang was also the first to bear the brunt. Her hair was scorched, and her hands and body were injured quite badly. She had been resting for many days. When she heard that a new batch of jewelry had arrived at Precious Painting Workshop, she was itching to come out and meet people. In the end, she didn't expect to meet the little crown princess as soon as she came out. Jixiang couldn't help but want to cry now. She hurriedly walked forward and obediently bowed to Arbor. Greetings to the crown princess. Arbor glanced at her indifferently. You may dispense with the formalities. Jixiang heaved a sigh of relief. Although the little crown princess' attitude was cold, she didn't look like she wanted to make things difficult for her. In fact, Jixiang didn't need to worry at all. Arbor was the kind of person who would only slap you to death if you courted death and provoked her. Moreover, once she took revenge on the spot, she would at most ignore you the next time she saw you. She wouldn't attack you again. If you didn't provoke her, why would she go crazy and slap you? Is the crown princess here to take back Precious Painting Workshop today? Who in the imperial capital didn't know that the crown princess had been causing a ruckus in the Mu clan's main branch and taking back her mother's dowry? Jixiang tried to strike up a conversation. The little crown princess glanced at her and nodded indifferently. On the side, Chun Baojia gritted her teeth. A slightly stiff smile appeared on her face as she walked forward and bowed. Greetings to Crown Prince Consort. If it wasn't for Ji Xiang's brainless shout, they could have pretended that they didn't see the Crown Princess and dispensed with the etiquette. Chun Baojia was so stupid that she had to come forward and salute her. Chun Baojia was angry in her heart, but the smile on her face was more brilliant. The little Crown Princess recognized Chun Baojia. Of course, he did not have a good impression of her. This person was Empress Dowager Chen's grandniece. As soon as she moved into the Crown Prince Palace, she sent little Eunuch Li to test her bottom line. She even wanted to stay in the Crown Prince's residence and steal her husband. She didn't have a good impression of her at first glance. Arbor put on an even colder face and didn't let Chun Baojia get up. He just stared at Chun Baojia coldly. Ji Xiang's heart was slightly startled. She stood there trembling with fear as she curiously sized up Chun Baojia. That day, they had angered the Crown Princess together. She didn't expect the Crown Princess to be so rude to Chun Baojia, while her attitude towards her was still alright. Did something happen between the two of them that she didn't know about? Chun Baojia gritted her teeth and forced a smile. She lowered her head and squatted slightly. She was so angry that her heart was trembling. Her voice revealed a bit of grievance. Crown Princess. The little Crown Princess didn't even look at her and directly led her people out of Precious Painting Workshop. Next shop. Chapter 2704. Chun Baojia was so angry that she straightened up and her lips trembled when she saw her leave without looking back. She stomped her feet and said to Ji Xiang beside her, "It's all your fault. Why did you greet that woman?" He had caused her to suffer such a great humiliation. She was so angry that her entire body trembled slightly. Ji Xiang was also very puzzled and asked, "Baojia, what happened between you and the Crown Princess?" Chun Baojia said with a sullen face, "What can happen? It's all because that person is petty and can't stand the Empress Dowager. I'm more shameless than her." Ever since the Crown Princess entered the palace, the Empress Dowager had never summoned her. Instead, Chun Baojia would enter the palace every few days to eat and chat with the Empress Dowager. Wasn't Chun Baojia more shameless in front of the Empress Dowager? Thinking of this, Chun Baojia's anger eased a little. With a cold face, she glanced at the empty shop and snorted. "I think there's no need to come to Jin Painting Workshop in the future." "Baojia, why do you say that?" Ji Xiang asked in surprise. Was this person a pig's brain? Chun Baojia glanced at her resentfully and said, "Now that the shop has been taken back by the Crown Princess, think about it. Can a girl from the village manage Jin Painting Workshop well? Does she know about jewelry trends? Does she know what kind of beauty products are suitable for the young ladies of aristocratic families?" Chun Baojia smiled sarcastically. "She doesn't know anything and rashly snatched Jin Painting Workshop from Madame Mu's hands. I think Jin Painting Workshop won't be able to operate for long. Sooner or later it will be ruined by her." "Baojia." Ji Xiang clutched her sleeves tightly and glanced at Chun Baojia timidly. "Let's be careful with our words. Look at you. I only scared you in Zhong Li's residence and you're scared out of your wits." Chun Baojia glanced at her unhappily. "Let's go." Ji Xiang hurriedly followed up and the two of them left Jinhua Workshop. When Chun Baojia returned to the residence, she called for her personal maidservant. "Bring 2 servants and go to Changle Street to buy a few hooligans to help me spread the news. Say that the Crown Princess, the village girl, doesn't know what's good for her and forced her legal mother to hand over Jin Painting Workshop. However, she's just a village woman from a small mountain village in the Lower Star region. She doesn't have such good eyesight. The Precious Painting Workshop in the future won't be as good as before. Only village girls will be willing to buy things from Jin Painting Workshop." Chun Baojia said sarcastically with a sneer on the corner of her mouth. Chun Baojia's personal maidservant naturally knew about the grudges between her young miss and the Crown Princess. She nodded and, with her face covered, led the 2 servants to the alley of Changle Street to look for the little scoundrel. In the end, he couldn't find the 2 scoundrels even after looking around. The only 2 little scoundrels, upon hearing that they were to accept the order to spread the news of the Crown Prince Consort. Both of them ran faster than rabbits with pale faces. It was as if there was a ghost chasing them from behind, disappearing without a trace in a flash. Chun Baojia's personal maidservant suppressed her anger and went back to report the matter. Chun Baojia couldn't help but be at her wit's end. However, she suffered a few losses at the hands of Arbor and was unwilling to let go of Jojo just like that. Thus, she invited a few young ladies to the Chun residence under the guise of a gathering of her close friends and intentionally or unintentionally revealed the news about Shin painting workshop to others. Chapter 2705. The news spread like wildfire, and in less than an afternoon, those noble ladies also knew that Shin Art Lane had changed owners. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Arbor looked as if she was strolling through a garden. She finished touring her mother's dozens of dowry shops and inspected the farmlands and fields. After making sure that all the handover personnel were in place, she then brought Li Yi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi back to the Mu residence. Although she had been shopping for an entire day, the little fellow was still in high spirits. Crown Princess. Zhao Tengdong stepped forward and bowed. He hurriedly said, "His Majesty has sent word that he wants to keep your highness in the South Study to discuss politics tonight." When the little crown princess heard that, she couldn't help but frown. She cursed inwardly, but didn't show any expression on her face. She only replied with an "oh" and sent eunuch Zhao away. Auntie Jing watched from the side and secretly sighed in admiration. The little crown princess didn't ask eunuch Zhao why the crown prince stayed in the South Study to discuss important matters. It could be seen that she was a girl with a sense of propriety. Although she wasn't too happy, she didn't show any expression on her face. The little fellow slumped on the bed listlessly and waved her hand to dismiss everyone. She took out a communication jade tablet from her inner world and saw a line of words floating. "Baby, I'll be back early tomorrow morning. Have a good meal and rest early." Sir Jojo rolled his eyes. He didn't even bother to take a bath and didn't want to do anything. He directly rolled onto the bed and went to sleep. The next morning, when Arbor opened her eyes, she felt a head rubbing against her side. She took a closer look and saw that the guy was looking at her with a grin on his face. "You're stinky." He reached out to poke her little face and carefully looked at her attire. She didn't even take off her outer clothes before rolling onto the bed, and sleeping Arbor instantly felt a little embarrassed. She originally came back in high spirits yesterday and wanted to tell him about the day's results. Who knew that he wouldn't be coming back? The little fellow instantly lost her energy. The exhaustion from a day of tossing and turning immediately rushed up, and she fell asleep without doing anything. "Is it because you can't see me that you're unhappy and went to sleep in a huff?" She hit the nail on the head. However, Sir Jojo would never admit it. Rolling her eyes at him, Xiaomu groaned as she tried to get up, but to her surprise, he reached out and hugged her, bouncing her off the bed. "Jojo, you need to change your habit of not talking in the morning. Change your sister. You must be secretly saying in your heart, 'Change my sister.'" Arbor. "That's not right, Jojo." Prince Mo carried her to the basin and handed her a wet handkerchief to wipe her face. "Did it go well yesterday?" Arbor's spirit was slightly lifted, but when he thought about how he didn't come home last night, he didn't want to talk to him. She snorted and turned the back of her head towards him. The crown prince was secretly amused. He hugged her from behind and rubbed his head against her neck. "It must be very smooth. With Jojo in charge, everything will be settled." That was. The little fellow turned his head and looked at him. "I'm afraid your father didn't make you stay overnight on purpose, did he?" The crown prince couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, "That's not it." He pulled her to sit in front of the dressing mirror, picked up an exquisitely crafted ivory tusk inlaid with purple rubies, and gently combed her long hair. "There was a sudden piece of news yesterday. Not far from the border town where we landed in China, there was a sudden monster attack in a small city called Luan City." Chapter 2706. I stayed in the South Study to look at the information, and while I was at it, I told Father about the Tianyun organization and the zombie. Arbor nodded. Since this matter was so important, she naturally had to mention it to the Emperor as soon as possible. She also didn't want the perfectly fine great divine continent to become like Xing. In fact, Xing was much better in this life than in her previous life. At least, the zombie situation didn't spread as badly as it did in her previous life. As long as they learned to control this matter, they could always control the situation within a certain range. Did your father say anything? More shocked, right? Prince Mo thought of his father's hand last night and couldn't help but curl his lips. Ignorant guy. Arbor glanced at the crown prince's expression and wanted to laugh a little. We must pay attention to this matter in Luan City. As Crown Prince Mo spoke, his hands didn't stop. He helped his wife tie up her hair into a simple yet lively bun, then picked out the hairpin he had made himself from the hairpin case and inserted it into her hair without hesitation. Seeing his wifey change into a purple muslin dress and walk out from behind the screen, the Crown Prince's eyes lit up, and he stepped forward to hold her. Jojo, you're getting prettier by the day. Arbor wasn't like other girls, who probably blushed at a compliment. Instead, she was a little smug, thinking that Prince Mo was very right. I'll go patrol again today to see how the handover of the shops is going. Arbor raised her little head. I'll go with you. Go to sleep. Arbor cast him an annoyed glance. This person didn't sleep last night. Didn't he need to catch up on sleep? Prince Mo shook her little hand. I'll catch up on sleep in the carriage. No need. You still have to attend that palace banquet tonight. You won't have the energy. Arbor tugged at his sleeve. Go to sleep. Prince Mo's eyes lit up. He hugged Arbor and whispered, Jojo, are you worried about your husband? Arbor gave him a look that said, Aren't you talking nonsense? He reached out and patted his butt with his little paw. Go to sleep. Soon after, he turned around and called for Kai Xiu and the others. Then, he ordered the carriage to set out. Prince Mo froze there for a long time, the tips of his ears involuntarily turning red. Only after a long time did he come to his senses. Oh my God! Was I being teased by Lord Jojo just now? Arbor had no idea that she had just flirted with a certain someone. She was just a little careless just as he got into the carriage and was about to leave. He was interrupted by Qi Xuanxuan's surprised shriek. Aya, my Jojo! Qi Xianxian jumped onto the carriage and hugged her, wanting to kiss her. I missed you so much, Jojo. Arbor hurriedly reached out to cover her mouth. Unable to take it anymore, he said, You stop. You guys have completed your advancement. You stink all over. Hurry and bathe. Yes. Qi Xianxian nodded. She pulled up her sleeves and sniffed. She almost fainted from the stench. Wah, I really stink. Arbor was speechless and wanted to laugh. He pushed her face away and looked at little fatty, Mata, Duanmu Qing and the rest who ran over. I've prepared rooms for you. Eunuch Zhao, get someone to bring them to the courtyard to rest and wash up. All right? Everyone, please. Jojo, are you going out? Wait for me to go with you. No need. You guys have advanced for so long. Rest for a day. I'll be back in the evening. I'll leave first. Chapter 2707. Arbor couldn't stand Qi Xuanxuan's stench any longer. She hurriedly lowered the curtains and called out, Let's go! Let's go! She looked like she was running away. Mata laughed heartily and teased Qi Xianxian. You're the one who's leaving. Qi Xianxian snorted when she heard this. You don't stink? Smell yourself, you stink 100 times more than me. You stinker! Everyone was noisily led by Eunuch Zhao to their respective rooms to bathe and rest. As for Arbor, she sat alone in the carriage and couldn't help but smile faintly when she thought of Xianxian and the others. They'd caused quite a commotion when they'd broken through in the back mountain of the Mu residence. Even old Patriarch Mu had been alerted and had gone to the back mountain to investigate. However, when he found out that a few of his young friends had broken through here, the old man had thoughtfully instructed everyone in the Mu residence not to disturb them. Arbor was happier than anyone that Xianxian and the others had successfully broken through this time. She'd taken a rough look at their cultivation levels just now. Xianxian had already entered the 6th level of the spirit realm. The little fatty, Mata, Luyu, and Huatao had all entered the 9th level of the spirit realm. Jiang Shaoxin had also successfully reached the 8th level of the spirit realm. Only Duanmu Qing's cultivation level was something she couldn't determine. It was obvious that his cultivation level was now above hers. Arbor felt a bit happy when she thought of being able to gather with her friends again and roam the world together. It would be even better if she could meet up with senior brother Situ and the others one day. Since she had nothing to do, Arbor took out a book of poisons and flipped through it. She leaned against the soft cushions in the carriage and read line by line. Actually, she seemed to have read these books thousands of times. She could clearly remember which herbs were on which page and which line. Arbor thought of yesterday when she thought of this. Qing Yang had mocked and ridiculed her yesterday. The gist of her words was that she didn't understand the business of Precious Painting Workshop. If she took over Precious Painting Workshop, the shop would probably close down in 2 months. It seemed that some rumors had started to spread again. Arbor didn't need to ask around to know that Miss Chan, who she'd met at Precious Painting Workshop yesterday, wouldn't let go of this opportunity to smear her name. However, none of this mattered anymore. To a nouveau riche, whether or not this small precious art workshop could continue to operate stably and whether or not it could make a lot of money was not a big problem. What she wanted to do was to get the item back from Mu Jingfeng. Regardless of whether she could manage it well or not, she just couldn't let Mu Jingfeng benefit from it. The little guy thought for a moment, then used his divine sense to push open the inner world gate and looked through the inner world. Then, he summoned Jing'an's divine sense avatar, who was training his divine sense on its own, into his inner world. After her conscious had evolved, her spiritual sense body had also evolved into a spiritual sense body. Moreover, ever since her inner world had expanded to 500 cubic meters, she had become much more powerful than before. Not only did it contain 3,000 statues, but it was also filled with gold, silver, jewels, and mountains of gold and silver. She let her spiritual consciousness jump in, but there was almost no place to land. Stepping on a pile of gold, silver, pearls, and jades, it made people speechless. Every time she looked at her inner world, she would get a headache. Lately, she had been trying her best not to open her inner world. Now that her conscious had entered the deity realm, she could take anything in her inner world without any effort. She remembered that there were several small copper boxes buried under the pile of pearls and jades. She let her spiritual consciousness rummage through the jewelry and saw her all-purpose food box. Chapter 2708. She simply let her divine sense clone open the all-purpose food box and took out a meat bun. She held it in her hand and took a bite without hesitation. It was warm and soft, and the taste of the bun was especially good. No wonder Shaolin kept saying that she wanted to eat a bun all day after eating one. Thinking of her soft and cute little sister, Arbor's eyes softened. Intentionally or unintentionally, her gaze moved towards the 3,000 stone sculptures. There was finally an open space behind the stone sculptures. In addition to the strangely shaped snake-shaped sculpture howling at the sky, there was also a golden martial ant walking around like she had ADHD. Ever since she had asked golden martial ant to come out and help Jojo, Jojo had let her stay in his inner world. It was as if this golden martial ant couldn't stop walking around the snake-shaped sculpture all day long. It gave Jojo a headache. Arbor was helpless. Just as she was about to retract her gaze, her line of sight suddenly paused, and her divine sense suddenly stopped on the snake-shaped stone sculpture. Could it be that she was hallucinating just now? Why did she seem to see the snake-shaped eyes of the stone sculpture suddenly move, as if the eyeballs under the eyelids rolled a circle? Don't scare me. Arbor used her divine sense to carefully scan the snake-shaped sculpture again. Seeing that it didn't move at all, she was slightly relieved. She must have been seeing things just now. She had been scaring herself all day and making a fuss about nothing. Arbor couldn't help but secretly laugh at herself for being timid. She retracted her divine sense and looked at the divine sense clone rummaging through the pile of jewelry to find a small copper box. Finally, the tiny figure pulled out several small copper chests from the pile of jewels. Arbor didn't know why, but a strange feeling slid through her heart. She felt that there were a dozen or so small copper boxes buried below, and she also felt that she should open these small boxes to take a look when she was feeling doubtful. Thus, when she opened the box, it was full of books and letters. The books were stacked up. There were a lot of books. Arbor's divine sense moved slightly and took out 3 of the small boxes. She then chased her divine sense clone back to Paradise Planet to continue training her divine sense. What are these books? Arbor flipped through the books and saw many books that she found familiar. She casually picked up a book and flipped through it. Seeing the small handwriting left behind when she was studying, she inexplicably felt that it was somewhat familiar. He took a pen and paper and wrote something down. Then he put down the pen. He looked at his own handwriting and then at the book. Well, although they were a little different, it was certain that both handwriting were hers. In the past, her handwriting was a little immature, but now her handwriting was even more vigorous, and her strokes were both good in form and spirit. Heaving a sigh of relief, Arbor picked up a letter and flipped it open. His eyes couldn't help but redden. It really was her master's handwritten letter. On the bottom left corner of the first page, there were the words, Dark Phoenix. He flipped through a few handwritten books. One of them was about how to train people, and the other was about how to quickly become a shop owner. From the buying and selling of the store to the location of the store to the interior decoration style, everything was done in great detail. The strangest thing was that one of the handwritten books recorded the method of running a restaurant. It was written on how to set up chairs outside the store, how to get the staff to dress uniformly, how to improve the menu, and so on. Many of the methods seemed to coincide with Madame Mu's methods. Arbor's eyebrows moved slightly. Chapter 2709. There were many names of dishes that she had never heard of before in this book. At the bottom, there were small annotations, names of dishes, and cooking methods. Most of them indicated which shop's signature dish on the mainland and what's special about it. Arbor was a little dumbfounded. She flipped through another handbook. There were many drawings of jewelry and other kinds of flowers. There were also many cute little animals that were made into dolls. All kinds of novel gadgets were clearly recorded in these handbooks. Arbor casually flipped through and saw several new necklaces. They were actually similar to the jewelry in the precious painting workshop. What was going on? He vaguely saw a little girl of about 7 or 8 years old sitting in front of a table covered with snow-white rice paper. She raised her head and asked softly, Master, do I have to memorize all of this and all of this? Little treasure, you just have to memorize the medical and poison books. As for the rest, you can keep them. If you need them one day, you can just flip through them. Master, how can these animals be drawn so cute? What are these? Do you like them? Ask your martial uncle to make you a little yellow duck doll someday. Master, but I like this pig. Aya, why do you like mini pigs? This little yellow duck looks much better than pigs. I like this little pig. All right. Ask your martial uncle to make one for you someday. Master, why don't you make one for little treasure? Could Xian Huang say that she was handicapped? Obviously not. Yes, her handicap was not as good as her junior martial sister. Hehe. There was still her junior martial sister to enslave. Io, my little treasure, have you finished the lollipop that Master prepared for you last time? Children shouldn't eat too much candy. You'll have tooth decay. A voice floated over. Arbor knew that it was the voice of her martial uncle. Bah, don't mind your martial uncle. We didn't eat too much, right? Xian Huang, don't lead the child astray. Call me senior martial sister. Impudent fellow. Thump. The carriage stopped for a moment. Arbor's thoughts flashed. When he came back to his senses, he found that the carriage had stopped. She hurriedly put away these letters that she treasured so much and put them back into the box and into her inner world. Her vision was a little misty. Crown Princess, we have arrived at Precious Painting Workshop. Kai Xiu reminded her and reached out to open the curtain for the Crown Princess. At a glance, he saw the little girl kneeling on the soft cushion of the carriage. Her eyes were red as she looked over. Her eyes were obviously tainted with a wisp of mist. She looked like a pitiful little animal. Saisho immediately became nervous. She looked back and forth inside the carriage and hurriedly asked, Crown Prince Consort, what happened? The little crown princess' pitiful and aggrieved look really made one's heart ache. It's nothing. The little crown princess adjusted her mood. She sniffed her little nose, held Kai Xiu's hand, and got off the carriage. I just thought of some past events. I miss them and feel a little upset. Kai Xiu heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but laugh. Crown Princess, we have just recovered so many properties. Your friends have also successfully advanced. There are more happy things than sad things, right? Kai Chi also chattered and laughed. Yes, 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 Crown Princess, you can't be depressed. We still have to continue fighting today. Chapter 27:10. The little crown princess glanced at them and couldn't help but want to laugh. After hearing what the two girls said, her heart did seem to relax a lot. She nodded and said, "What you said makes sense." Kai Chi covered her mouth and laughed secretly. "Then let's go in." The little crown princess nodded and lifted her spirits. She led the two of them into the precious painting workshop. Eunuch Chun, who was accompanying them, followed closely behind them. Once they walked in, they realized that the atmosphere was a little strange. It should be said that the shop was so bleak that it was a little strange. The shopkeeper of the precious painting workshop heard that the crown princess was here and hurriedly came out to welcome her. Once he saw the little crown princess, he bowed with shame. This old servant is not doing a good job. The business of the precious painting workshop is very bleak today. It's almost noon, but no one has stepped into the shop. The little crown princess waved her hand to get him to stand up and talk. All of this naturally didn't make sense. The precious painting workshop was opened on Changle Street. Its location could be said to be better than the Kaidai Pavilion. There was a huge flow of people in front of the shop. Who didn't like jewelry? Even if they didn't buy it, they could still come in to take a look. Today, no one came in at this time. It was obvious that someone was messing with them. The shopkeeper was also an old expert in this field. He had already sent people out to find out the news. Now that the crown princess was here, he hurriedly invited her to take a seat and ask someone to serve her tea. Soon, the few workers who were sent out to find out the news returned. They all reported to the old shopkeeper with strange expressions. I found out some clues from a fellow villager. That fellow villager is working under the young master of the Gu family. I heard that the young mistress of the Gu family and many other noble ladies have joined forces to boycott the precious painting workshop. They said that, as the worker spoke, he carefully lifted his head and glanced at the little crown princess. This glance made him dizzy. The little crown princess was exquisite and beautiful like a cold jade doll. He didn't dare to look at her anymore. He quickly lowered his head and didn't dare to speak. Speak. Arbor knew what he was afraid of and said lightly, "I'll pardon you." Yes. That waiter only felt his heart sink a little. After thinking about how to phrase it, he hurriedly said, "Those upper-class matrons all said that Crown Prince Consort, you came from a small mountain village in the lower star domain, so your horizons are very ordinary. If they come to our shop to buy things, then wouldn't they all become village girls?" Bullshit. The shopkeeper couldn't help but curse. He shouted angrily, "This is outrageous. How dare they talk about their crown princess like that? They must be tired of living." The little crown princess wasn't angry. She said indifferently, "Write down the names of those noblewomen and put them on the blacklist. In the future, as long as it's under my name, they won't be welcome." Yes. The shop assistant nodded his head vigorously. He remembered who it was and would write it down for the shopkeeper when he got back. "Everyone, don't worry. Even if the shop loses money every day, I can still afford to support you," the little crown princess said calmly. "It will get better." Kai Xiu couldn't help but feel a little heartache. In her opinion, the crown princess never went out to provoke others. Although she treated people coldly, she was still distant and polite. She wouldn't think of ways to humiliate the servants just because of her noble status. She really didn't know why those noble ladies were always thinking about how to deal with the crown princess even though they had nothing better to do. Chapter 27:11. The shopkeeper hastily said, "If the shop continues to be like this, The crown princess can cut this old servant's wages in half. The little crown princess shook her head. No one's wages will be reduced. You just have to do your job properly. As long as you are loyal and devoted without any disloyalty, wages and whatnot are all trivial matters. Yes, crown princess. Everyone was both happy and a little sad. They thought that the little crown princess must be feeling terrible right now. After all, a good shop had turned into this after just one day of business. Unexpectedly, their crown princess didn't care at all. In any case, the house and land were all hers, so she didn't need to spend an expensive rent. She just needed to spend a bit of labor every day, so it wasn't considered a loss. How could they know that in the eyes of a nouveau riche like the crown princess, this bit of labor money was really nothing if it was a loss? Then so be it. In any case, she had just received 100 million spirit coins from Mu Jingfeng as a tribute. Who knew how long she could continue to lose? The little crown princess had only drunk half a cup of tea when she heard the sound of horse hooves outside. The carriage slowly stopped in front of her precious painting house. The two slender receptionists guarding the door ran in excitedly, practically shrieking, "Crown Prince Consort! Crown Prince Consort! Kong! Kong! Princess Consort Kong has arrived." Princess Consort Kang's low-key and luxurious carriage stopped in front of precious painting house. When the carriage's curtain was lifted, Dan Ling smilingly helped the Princess Consort down from the carriage. The passers-by all stopped to watch. Several noblewomen who were walking out of the clothing store opposite couldn't help but exclaim, "Heavens! Is that Princess Consort Kong? Why does she look 10 years younger?" Oh, that's right. Princess Consort has changed so much. As those noblewomen spoke, they hurriedly squeezed forward to greet Princess Consort Kong. Princess Consort Kong cheerfully let them rise and exchanged a few pleasantries. "Madam Jiang, Madam Li, are you shopping?" "That's right. Today's weather is good." "Aya, Princess Consort. It's only been a few short days since we parted at Zhongli Estate, but you've changed so much. Did Princess Consort encounter some opportunity? I hope you won't be stingy with your guidance." A few women surrounded Wang Fei and chattered incessantly. Their eyes were filled with envy, but there was no jealousy. Everyone knew that Prince Kong loved his wife as much as his own life. With Prince Kang's means, naturally, he would search the entire divine continent for Princess Consort to find treasures like elixirs and beautifying medicines to make Princess Consort happy. Princess Consort Kong smiled happily. When she looked up, she happened to see the young crown princess running out of Jinhua workshop. "Jojo." Princess Consort Kong hurried forward. Arbor also came to greet her. "Imperial Aunt." "Hey, my good child, let Auntie take a look. Why are your eyes red? Did someone bully you?" Princess Consort Kang's face immediately darkened. The madams immediately took a few steps back, carefully not daring to speak. "It's nothing. Who can bully me?" Arbor hooked his arm around Princess Consort Kang's arm, a rare happy expression appearing on the little stoic's face. "Why did Auntie come? You've just taken over this shop, so it's like a newly opened shop. Of course, Auntie has to come and take a look. While she's at it, she's also shamelessly asking you for some beautifying cream. Take a look at Auntie. How does her complexion look?" "Much better." Arbor's eyes also had a hint of a smile, and he asked with a nod, "Do you still feel cold recently?" "Much better, much better." The Princess Consort beamed with delight. Chapter 27:12. Take the warm jade pill for another month or two. When the old prince has gathered all the herbs on the list, we can perform acupuncture. The Princess Consort nodded repeatedly. "Good, good, good." The madams that the Princess Consort had addressed as Madame Li and Madame Jiang also involuntarily followed in. They truly felt their hearts itch unbearably when they heard the conversation between the Princess Consort and the Crown Princess. They had all heard the Princess Consort asking the Crown Princess for a beautifying ointment just now. What was this beautifying ointment? Did it have anything to do with Princess Kang's current appearance? Madame Jiang was an impatient person and hastily interjected, "My apologies. Greetings to the Crown Princess." "Princess Consort, why don't you tell us? Are you trying to make us anxious to death?" Princess Kong snapped out of her reverie and finally noticed Madame Jiang and the others who had followed in. She couldn't help but smile as she said, "Madame Jiang is anxious. How can I not be anxious? Princess Consort, you don't know how much you've changed in just a few days? If we hadn't seen the insignia of Prince Kongqing's estate's carriage just now, we wouldn't have dared to come forward to acknowledge you." That's right, that's right. Princess Consort, did something good happen? Tell us about it. It really is something good, Princess Kong said with a smile. It was that day at the gathering at Zhongli Estate, when I brought my niece-in-law home, something good happened. Quickly tell us, the madams anxiously urged. Princess Kong couldn't help but chuckle softly as she said, "My crown princess gave me a black-grade beautifying pill. After eating it, my entire body felt refreshed. Not only that, the crown princess also gave me a box of beautifying ointment." As Princess Kong spoke, she took out the remaining beautifying ointment in her storage talisman and opened it for them to see. As soon as she opened the lid, a faint fragrance faintly wafted into their breaths. Madame Jiang hastily reached out to take the beautifying ointment from Princess Kang's hand, but Princess Kong hastily took it back and shook her head as she said, "I only have that much left. I can't give it away." "Stingy," Madame Jiang huffed, then said, "It's not like we haven't eaten a black-grade beautifying pill before. Is it really that effective? Just look at me and you'll know." Prince Consort Kong smiled. Madame Jiang and the others instantly believed him by 80 to 90%. They also planned to buy a beautifying pill. Could it be that this little crown princess was really capable? In the past, the beautifying pills sold by Zhenhua Workshop did not have such a heaven-defying effect. The beautifying pill could only allow people to maintain their original appearance and not continue to age. If you took the beautifying pill when you were 50 or 60 years old, it would be useless. But Princess Consort Kong and the others all knew that in the past, she looked more than 10 years older than she did now. Now, looking at Wang Fei's face, there was not a single wrinkle. Her skin was smooth and delicate, and the area around her eyes did not seem as loose as before. What was even more amazing was that although Princess Consort Kong was not very fat in the past, she was not thin either. Now, her figure had also become much more symmetrical, and she was even more graceful than when she was young. So, was the beautifying pill that Princess Consort Kong took specially made? It could actually make a person look so many years younger? Madame Jiang was the most impatient, and she hastily asked, "Crown Princess, is the beautifying pill that Princess Consort Kong took still available for sale? I also want to buy one and try it." Arbor was slightly taken aback. Only now did he know why Princess Consort Kong wanted to come here today. Chapter 27:13. She was deliberately using herself to prove that the beautifying pills produced by Precious Painting Workshop, which the Crown Princess had taken over, had miraculous effects. Feeling somewhat moved, Arbor supported Princess Consort Kang's hand and nodded at Madame Jiang. 1,000,000 spirit coins for one pill. The madams widened their eyes. Princess Consort Kang's mouth twitched. She thought to herself that this niece-in-law of hers was truly black-hearted. But she quite liked her. Ha ha ha. There aren't many beautifying pills, so buy them quickly. Little Crown Princess said this again. Her stoic face was deadpan, and there wasn't a hint of a smile at all. Master had recorded in his handwritten letter that doing business had to be slow and steady. After all, rare goods were worth hoarding. She couldn't take out all the good stuff at once. Master's words of experience definitely made sense. Princess Consort Kong held back her laughter when she recalled the little fellow taking out a small stew pot from her inner world that day. It was filled to the brim with beautifying pills, so how could there not be many of them? This little trickster's stoic face was filled with seriousness. The more she looked at her, the cuter she was. When the madams heard that the price was so high, they all became somewhat hesitant. Madame Jiang looked at her own plump figure, then glanced at Princess Consort Kong, and asked worriedly, "Then can you really slim down after eating it?" Little Crown Princess was expressionless as she nodded very indifferently. "This is the most basic beautifying effect. After taking it, you'll discover that your skin will be a little better than yesterday every day. Under the imperceptible influence, you'll be like a young girl in a few months' time. This effect can be maintained for about 100 years. The effect will be even better if it's taken together with corresponding longevity pills. Little Crown Princess paused with a serious expression, completely devoid of any intention to promote a product. She said, "This Crown Princess has a pill shop in the southern part of the city called Heavenly Pill Workshop. It will reopen in 3 days. At that time, there will be all kinds of longevity pills with different effects for sale. You can go take a look then." Princess Consort Kong suppressed her laughter and nodded with a serious expression. "Madam Jiang, this money was not spent in vain at all. I guarantee that once you take it, you'll see the effects immediately." All right. Madam Jiang was the first to be moved by his words. She gritted her teeth and nodded. "I'll buy it." The other madams planned to wait and see, but their hearts would bleed the next day. The little stoic nodded. "This is a special discount price today. When the price goes back to normal tomorrow, it won't be this price anymore." Princess Consort Kang's mouth twitched again. When she got home, she was going to tell the old prince not to offend her niece-in-law in the future. Her ruthlessness in swindling others was even greater than her eldest nephew's. The little crown princess had just taken over the precious painting workshop, and she had only done one business today. This single transaction alone earned him a net profit of 1 million spirit coins. This was because the herbs needed to concoct the beautifying pill were all grown by Chochio in the 100 Herb Garden on Paradise Planet. Everyone in the shop, from the shopkeeper to the workers, was so happy that they were all smiling. They were truly happy for the crown princess. Look, the crown princess had this kind of ability. Their shop didn't even need to open for business in a year. The moment they opened, they could make up for a year's worth of other shops' profits. Wasn't it already pretty good if a normal shop could make a profit of 100,000 spirit coins a month? They were overjoyed that the little crown princess could make 1 million a day with a single transaction. It had to be said that Princess Consort Kang's visit was truly very effective. Chapter 27:14. In the afternoon, Precious Painting Workshop's business slowly returned to normal. If you dare to say that Precious Painting Workshop is opened by a village girl, I'll slap you to death. Even Princess Consort Kong came to support Precious Painting Workshop. Village girl my ass. With Princess Consort Kong taking the lead, all the matrons of the imperial family who wanted to build a good relationship with Princess Consort Kong and the crown princess all came to support without prior consultation. At first, they were a little hesitant, but when they saw that the quality of the goods in the shop had not changed, they were very happy. They also wanted to build a good relationship, so they bought many things. As a result, those matrons of the aristocratic families who thought of themselves as virtuous were at their wits' end. Precious Painting Workshop did not earn money from these aristocratic families, but they still had the support of the imperial family. As long as the little crown princess did a few palace business, she would not be lacking in income this year. Moreover, she was doing business for fun. Even if she made a loss, the imperial family would not shortchange her. With this thought, some of the matrons of the aristocratic families gave up on the idea of boycotting Precious Painting Workshop. Arbor was too lazy to care about what other people thought. After sending off Imperial Ant, he brought people to inspect the business as usual. The business was bleak, but so what? The little crown princess did not lack the money to make a loss. When she arrived at Kaidai Pavilion, she called shopkeeper Hu over and took out 10 caddies of holy rice and 10 caddies of vegetables for him. She said, "Add a new item on the menu. It's a special item. I'll provide some for free today. Anyone who comes to our Kaidai Pavilion today can try a small bowl of holy rice and a plate of spirit dishes. In the future, as long as it's the vegetables, rice, and grains that I provide, it will be calculated at a special price. There will be a limited supply every day. Let's temporarily set it at 30,000 spirit coins for a small bowl of rice. A plate of spirit dishes will be 50,000 spirit coins." The little crown princess thought of what was written in the handbook, and her eyes turned again. If the supply does not meet the demand in the future, we'll sell it at the auction price. The highest bidder wins. She had good goods in her hands, So how could she not have enough people to buy? Was her holy rice ordinary rice? The warehouse of the vegetables and fruits that she had planted on Paradise Planet was almost full. Would she go around telling others about it? Humph! When her special products really became famous, there would be plenty of people begging to buy them. She would just let them despise her now. When had she ever not slapped the faces of those who despised her back? Although shopkeeper who did not understand where the young crown prince consort's confidence came from, he still nodded and memorized the crown prince consort's words in his heart. From now on, we'll put up a blacklist in the shop. No one on the blacklist will be allowed to enter the shop. As long as it's my business, it's on the blacklist. It can be used in all shops. The young crown prince consort said solemnly, "Our inn only accepts polite people. Forget about those shrews from the marketplace." The corners of shopkeeper whose mouth twitched. In his heart, he thought that his little crown princess was really willful. He hurriedly agreed with a smile and let the workers prepare the blacklist. After Arbor gave these instructions, he felt a little proud. Who said she didn't know how to run a business? Even if she didn't know how to do it, she had her omnipotent master. These people wanted to use this little scheme to defeat her. They were simply indulging in fantasy. When she came out of the shop in the southern part of the city, the sky was already close to dusk. At this moment, she saw a fast horse galloping in front of her. Aunt Jing flipped off the horse's back and hurriedly bowed. "Crown Princess, please return to Yulon Court quickly. His Highness the Crown Prince is furious." Chapter 27:15. Fly into a rage? She understood Mo Lien's personality the best. At least on the surface, this crown prince really knew when to advance and when to retreat. He was gentle and refined, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. To be able to make Aunt Jing run over to find her and say that His Highness the Crown Prince would fly into a rage, he probably drew his sword in a murderous rage. "Crown Princess, His Highness the Crown Prince is about to execute all the maids and servants in Yulon Court," Aunt Jing hurriedly said with a look of shock on her face. Killing people in the Crown Princess's maiden home would be a bad reputation no matter what. Aunt Jing had rushed over in a hurry to find the Crown Princess to save the day. She had a feeling that only the Crown Princess could persuade the enraged Crown Prince, and only the Crown Princess could save the day. The young Crown Princess was startled, and she quickly asked, "What's going on?" As she spoke, she had already walked over to the carriage and swiftly leaped onto it. Aunt Jing mounted the horse and followed beside the carriage. When she saw the young Crown Princess lift the carriage curtain, she leaned over and whispered, "The Crown Princess will know when we get back." The young Crown Princess frowned. It seemed that this matter wasn't easy to talk about outside. She nodded and instructed the coachman to speed up the carriage towards the Mu estate. By the time the carriage arrived at the Mu estate, it was already an hour later. Arbor alighted and immediately rushed to Jade Orchid Court with Aunt Jing and the others. At the entrance, they almost bumped into Mu Qingya, Mu Rochuan, and the others who were rushing over. Mu Qingya nodded at her and bowed in greeting. "The Crown Princess has returned." The young Crown Princess coldly swept a glance at her before turning to run into Jade Orchid Court. The veins on Mu Rochuan's forehead were throbbing in anger. She pulled her mother and whispered, "Mother, why do you have to make yourself suffer like this?" Mu Qingya frowned and patted the back of her daughter's hand. "There's a difference between a ruler and a subject. She married into the imperial family and naturally represents the imperial family's dignity. Some etiquette is also necessary. But you're still her stepmother. How can an elder bow to a junior?" Mu Rochuan said angrily. "All right, let's go in and see what's going on." Mu Qingya tugged at her daughter. She had just recovered from a serious illness and her complexion did not look too good. However, when she heard that the Crown Prince was enraged in Yulon Park, she hurried over. If the Crown Prince was angered, then it was naturally because she, as the mistress of the household, had not made proper arrangements. No matter what, she could not shirk this responsibility. She had to be there. Mu Rochuan felt stifled as she held her mother's hand and walked into the courtyard. At this time, Arbor was stopped by Zhou Mama and several maidservants with disheveled hair. Nanny Zhou and the others knelt on the ground and repeatedly kowtowed to her, crying and shouting. They kept saying that it was Chrysanthemum and Plum Immortal's fault, that they should not be implicated, and so on. Xiao Mu felt her head swell. She simply did not know what had happened. Amidst the commotion, Prince Emo walked out in a green robe. His long hair was disheveled, and he looked like he had just taken a bath. There were still water droplets on his hair that had not been dried with the fire spirit. His handsome face was full of murderous intent. His phoenix eyes narrowed dangerously as he coldly surveyed his surroundings. When he saw Arbor, he was slightly startled, and the hostility between his brows eased a bit. So the crown prince was so handsome after taking a bath. His features were picturesque and his person was like jade. So good-looking. Sir Jojo's eyes lit up. He hurriedly ran over and threw himself into the crown prince's arms, rubbing his chest. "I'm back." Chapter 27:16. Strangely, Aunt Jing, who was standing not far away from the two, could clearly feel that the crown prince's cold and vicious aura, which was as sharp as a blade, had lessened greatly. It was as if he had suddenly gone from the cold winter to the warm spring breeze and flourishing flowers. Aunt Jing let out a small sigh of relief. She felt that her decision to gallop on horseback to find the crown princess to save the situation had been too wise. As expected, only the crown princess could pacify the crown prince, who was burning with rage and had gone berserk, down. Prince Emo reached out to hug his little wife. His expression finally showed some joy. Looking at the little fellow who was rubbing against his chest, he couldn't help but rub her head. "Little liar. It's already dark, and you lied to me that you'd be back soon." The little fellow looked up at the sky, then buried her little head in his chest and rubbed against him. "I bought you something good to eat. As compensation. Let's go in and eat." Arbor suddenly paused. His gaze fell on the two people who had been lifted up from the ground and beaten to a pulp. The two women were already so bloody that their original faces couldn't be seen. They couldn't be any more dead. And she could feel that the crown prince despised the two of them to the extreme. "Burn them," he said coldly. His subordinates didn't dare to linger for a moment. They hurriedly carried the two women out of the courtyard. The little crown princess blinked and looked up at Prince Emo. The crown prince had always been on the throne. It was impossible to say that he was a kind-hearted person. But she understood him. Deep down, he was actually very indifferent to people and things. He would not easily get angry over such trivial matters. However, once he got angry, there would definitely be bloodshed on the spot. He would not give anyone any chance to breathe. The little fellow was pulled into the room by Prince Emo, and the door was closed with a bang. Her little body was rolled up into a ball and held in his arms. Sir Jojo strangely felt that he wasn't in a good mood. He reached out and patted his back comfortingly. "What happened? Jojo? Your husband was almost molested by a female hooligan." "What?" Arbor's hair stood on end. He looked up at him. "Who? Are they the two bloody women just now?" Emolien nodded and angrily recounted what had happened. It turned out that when the crown prince woke up and saw that it was getting late, he planned to take a bath and change his clothes. When Jojo returned, he would bring her to the palace for the banquet. Who would have thought that when the bath was about to end, the two maidservants named Juxian and Meixian actually sneaked to the door of the inner courtyard side room, intending to climb in through the window and have close contact with the crown prince. In the end, that girl called Juxian had just taken a step and climbed up to the window when she was discovered by the hidden guards. The secret guard immediately jumped out from his hiding place, picked up the gauzy girl, and threw her into the courtyard. At the same time, the crown prince hurriedly put on his clothes and got up. He pushed open the door and saw the two reckless people. He was so angry that his hair almost curled. It had been a long time since someone could anger him like this. If those two sluts really barged into his room and spread rumors to his little wife's ears, Emolien couldn't help but shudder. With the little fellow's awkward personality, he didn't know if she would dislike him and distance herself from him. He couldn't help but feel sorry for himself when he thought about it. Prince Mo hugged his little wife and hurriedly said, before they could climb in, they were thrown away by the secret guard. Chapter 27:17. The implication was that they hadn't seen anything about her husband and that he was still innocent. Arbor was so angry that he felt dizzy. Today's matter couldn't be settled peacefully. How many days had it been since she came back? Why did all the maidservants in her maiden family want to climb onto the crown prince? Who were they trying to disgust? It seemed that her temper was too good. That was why they were all so unafraid of death. The little fellow's face was tense, and Prince Mo felt a little uneasy. She pulled him out of the side room and coldly looked at Nanny Zhou and the others who were kneeling and sobbing in the courtyard. When she saw Mu Qingya's awkward expression, she said coldly, "Guards, prepare the carriage to return to the Eastern Palace." Mu Qingya sighed in relief, but her expression was still a little uneasy. Are the Crown Princess and His Highness the Crown Prince going back to the palace for the banquet? Arbor ignored her and turned to Caixio and Kai Chi. Pack up everything and leave now. Why should she continue to stay in her maiden home when it was so unbearable? It wasn't like she didn't have a place to stay. What a joke. Those who didn't know better would think that she had no choice but to stay here. His Highness the Crown Prince blinked and looked down at his little wife. Jojo, are we going back? Arbor nodded. Let's go home. Mu Qingya looked a little flustered. She couldn't bear the crime of forcing the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess to leave. She hurriedly stepped forward and tried to persuade them. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Crown Princess, I will give you an explanation for this matter. What explanation? Arbor rudely interrupted her and said with a sneer, ever since I stepped into the Mu family, tell me yourself, how many things have happened? I thought that after what happened with Shaoxing, you would at least be a little more careful. I didn't expect that you would stuff such trash into Yulan court. No, Mu Qingya was in a panic. She hurried forward to explain, but she was in such a hurry that she tripped and almost tripped. Mu Rochuan hurriedly rushed forward to support her. Her eyes were filled with anger as she glared at Arbor. She suppressed her anger and said in a low voice, Crown Princess, can you listen to my mother's explanation? What else is there to explain? Xiao Mu gazed coldly at this pair of mother and daughter. She then turned around to tell Caixio and Caichi, who were carrying things out, hurry up. This Crown Prince Consort doesn't want to stay in this foul place for even a minute longer. In any case, he had already received the compensation that he needed. This place was not worth being nostalgic about. Mu Qingya was so angry that she was somewhat out of her wits. When she turned around and saw Mu Jingfeng and Mu Xingchen walking in, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She hurriedly went forward and apologized. Husband, it's this concubine's incompetence in managing the household that caused the Crown Princess and His Highness the Crown Prince to leave in anger. Mu Jingfeng already knew about what happened in Yulan court. Now that he saw the little Crown Princess's angry appearance, he could not help but feel angry. What are you doing now? Making a fuss at home all day long without a moment of peace. Arbor could not be bothered with him. If he wanted to make a fuss, then let him. In any case, in this man's eyes, she was not a good daughter no matter what. To be able to make someone who had never accepted you like you, that was quite a difficult setting. She had no reason to curry favor with this person and make him like her. After all, she was not a spirit coin, right? Caixio and Kai Chi moved swiftly. As they spoke, they had already packed up the things. Chapter 27:18. The two swiftly packed the Crown Princess and Crown Prince's clothes and utensils into the carriage before standing next to Li Yi and coldly watching the flustered and exasperated Mu Jingfeng and his wife. What thousand-year-old patrician family. The servant girls they raised were all the same kind of trash, wholeheartedly wanting to climb into their master's bed. They were simply rotten to the core. These reckless things must have thought that His Highness the Crown Prince's normally gentle temperament was easy to bully. How could they have expected that this Crown Prince was actually an exceptionally cold and indifferent person? After interacting with the couple for a few days, Saishio and Saichi had already grasped their two masters' temperaments. His Highness the Crown Prince looked very good-natured, but he was actually much more hard-hearted than the stoic-faced Crown Prince Consort. Arbor. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but berate. She didn't even say a word and immediately dragged the Crown Prince back to the Eastern Palace, never to return home again. If word got out, people would really think that their Mu family had slighted their daughter and son-in-law who had returned home. If the Emperor knew, he would think that their Mu family didn't welcome His Highness the Crown Prince's return to the capital. "What are you yelling for?" Prince Mo coldly glanced at Mu Jingfeng. At this time, Mu Jingfeng's retainer walked over and whispered into his ear. Only then did Mu Jingfeng's cold and hard expression slightly ease up. He patiently cupped his hands towards His Highness the Crown Prince and gently advised, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, I have already investigated this matter, including Xiao Xing's clash with the Crown Prince last time. It truly has nothing to do with Madam." Mu Xingchen already knew what happened in Yulan Court at this time. He walked up and coldly looked at Zhou Mama's party. "You all truly have big guts. These wicked servants actually dared to covet his brother-in-law and wanted to steal his sister's man. They simply deserved to die." Zhou Mama's entire body trembled. She also felt extremely wronged in this matter. Who would have thought that Chrysanthemum Fairy, the two most intelligent and sensible servants, would do such a foolish thing and even implicate themselves? Xiao Xing had already infuriated the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Now, Chrysanthemum Fairy was even bolder, actually daring to secretly climb through the window, wanting to take advantage of His Highness the Crown Prince's bath to get close to him. He was truly audacious. Eldest young master is wise. This servant is definitely not on the same side as these two wretched girls. Nanny Zhou kowtowed with tears and snot flowing down her face. She hurriedly said, "The two of them were so audacious that they deserve to die. However, we are innocent." Mu Xingchen glanced at them coldly, then looked at Madame Mu with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "Madame really doesn't know about this?" Mu Qingya raised her head abruptly and looked at her son in shock. She stared at him blankly as if she didn't recognize him. "Big brother." Mu Roxuan panicked. "How can you treat mother like this? You actually suspect mother? Why? Don't you know what kind of person mother is after all these years? You're pissing me off." "Shen'er, don't talk to big brother like that." Mu Qingya grabbed Mu Roxuan's hand with tears in her eyes. Mu Xingchen also felt that his question was abrupt. Seeing Mu Qingya on the verge of collapse, he couldn't bear it any longer. Thinking of Mu Qingya's meticulous care for him all these years, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. "I also hope that I guessed wrongly." However, all the signs indicated that Madame really couldn't escape her involvement in this matter. Chapter 27:19. At the side, Mu Jingfeng was also angered half to death. He coldly looked at his son and said, "You're really becoming more and more outrageous. You don't even call her mother and learn from some uneducated people to call her madam." Mu Jingfeng angrily said, "Just as your younger sister said, your mother has taken care of you for so many years. Don't tell me that she's nurtured you into an ingrate? Let's go." Arbor could not be bothered to listen to Mu Jingfeng's indirect scolding and directly gave the order to pull His Highness the Crown Prince out of Jade Orchid Court. "Stop right there!" Mu Jingfeng exasperatedly roared. Seeing that Arbor ignored him and pulled the Crown Prince out of Jade Orchid Court, Mu Jingfeng could not help but angrily shout, "This matter has nothing to do with your stepmother. Father has already investigated clearly. These two girls, Zhu Xian and Mei Xian, are concubine Shi's subordinates in your Jade Orchid Court." Mu Qingya was startled and turned to look at Mu Jingfeng. "Husband, this matter has been investigated clearly?" Mu Jingfeng nodded with a heavy expression. "Last time, Xiao Xing suddenly went crazy in the woodshed because concubine Shi sent Mu He to secretly sneak into the woodshed at night." Mu Roxuan angrily said, "What is concubine Shi up to now? I've already sent people to call concubine Shi and Mu He over. Can't the Crown Princess be at ease for a moment? Must she be so obstinate and self-opinionated?" not listening to others at all and pouring dirty water on Madam's head? Mu Jingfeng, you'd best pay attention to your words. Prince Mo turned around and coldly looked at Mu Jingfeng before him. Mu Jingfeng hastily cupped his hands and said, Your Highness the Crown Prince, please allow me to report this. This steward of Jade Orchid Court, as well as the group of servants, did not do their job well and provoked your Highness's anger. I will naturally banish all of them from the Mu family. I hope the two of you will stay for a moment. Concubine sure dared to do such a daring and presumptuous thing, so I will definitely properly punish her. When Nanny Zhou and the rest heard this, they all collapsed to the ground and cried to the heavens and the earth, begging the family head to let them off. However, Mu Jingfeng did not even spare them a glance and directly got people to drag them to kneel outside Yulan Court. Just as Shi Huixin entered Yulan Court with an uneasy heart, she saw Mu Jingfeng rudely kick her in her direction. Shi Huixin immediately knelt on the ground. This heavy kick was avoided by her. Second Miss Mu Rouyen and sixth Miss Mu Rouyun came over together. Seeing this, they hurriedly reached out to help their mother up. Their faces were filled with anger as they turned to look at their father, Mu Jingfeng. Father, what are you doing? Ask your good concubine what she did. Mu Jingfeng glared at Mu He, who was kneeling at the side. Stop pretending. I've checked everything out. Today, the two maidservants in Yulan Garden, Shi Huixin, were arranged by you. Also, that last Xiaoxing went crazy in the woodshed. You must have asked Mu He to drug her with some kind of medicine. That's why she mutated into a monster. It must be some kind of poisonous powder that causes people to go berserk. Shi Huixin trembled with fear and could not help but cry out for injustice. Husband, you can't wrong me like this just to protect Madam, right? Madam is the one in charge of the entire household. The manpower in Yulan Court was also allocated by Madam. What does it have to do with this concubine? You still dare to spout nonsense and deny it, Mu Jingfeng angrily said. He directly threw some jewelry he found in the two maidservants' room in front of Shi Huixin. Did you reward these? Heh, it's true that generous rewards will attract brave men. Chapter 27:20. Concubine Shi was terrified, her eyelids twitching uncontrollably. Not only do you want to make things difficult for the crown princess, but you also want to use this to pull Madam down, right? Mu Jingfeng pointed at concubine Shi and scolded. You usually look gentle and kind, but I didn't expect you to be so scheming. This family head was almost kept in the dark by you and wrongly blamed Madam. Shi Huixin turned pale with fright and abruptly turned to look at Mu Qingya. The venomous glint in her eyes could practically turn into a substantial arrow and shoot out. She already knew that Juxian and Meixian were people she arranged to be in Yulan Court? This woman, had long been watching all of this coldly from the sidelines? Shi Huixin originally thought that she was a hunter and could laugh as she watched the dog-eat-dog scene in Yulan Court. How could a man not have an affair? Even if the crown princess was a fairy, there would always be a time when men were disgusted. What was wrong with changing their taste? However, with the crown princess's arrogant personality, if she knew that His Highness the Crown Prince favored two maidservants, who knew how she would kick up a fuss, His Highness might tolerate it once or twice. If she caused too much trouble, she would definitely be disliked by His Highness the Crown Prince. She could just sit and watch with a sneer, so she repeatedly warned her two daughters not to make a move, intending to sit and watch the dragons fight. Who would have thought that she would be pecked blind by the wild goose all day long? Not only did His Highness not play by the rules, but even Madame was biting back at her. She had long known that this Madame, who ascended to the position of the family head's wife with a body without any cultivation, must be a very scheming person. However, she did not expect her to be so vicious as to push all of this to her. Most importantly, Mu Jingfeng really believed it. Shi Huixin hurriedly walked a few steps on her knees and cried, Husband, this concubine has been wronged. How could there be such a coincidence that Mu Liang found a large amount of jewelry in the two maidservants' room as soon as he went to search? Only husband, that brainless person, could be fooled like this. This concubine is merely a small concubine. How can I be the master of Yulon court? Concubine sure cried. How can this concubine's hands be so long? Even if this concubine harbored some ill intentions, there's no way I could. Shut up! Mu Jingfeng looked at her coldly and kicked her to the side. Mu Royun and Mu Ruyan became anxious. Father, how can you treat mother like this? Mother! This was the first time Mu Jingfeng heard this word from his two daughters. In a moment of desperation, Mu Royan and Mu Royun also blurted out the way they usually addressed each other in private. When the two of them were outside, they were actually very polite. They never dared to be presumptuous in front of their father and always called Inyang Shur Inyang. So this is how you teach your daughter. She's so unruly. Mu Jingfeng said coldly. I thought you were a good person, but it turns out that you've hidden yourself quite well. Shur Huixin's face was deathly pale, unable to defend herself. How did things come to this? Shur Huixin simply couldn't figure it out. She hurriedly crawled a few steps forward and tugged at Mu Jingfeng's trousers as she cried, Husband, husband, this concubine knows her wrongs. Husband, please forgive this concubine this once. Shur Huixin was not foolish. Since husband had already said this, it meant that he had already decided that she had to take the blame today. Regardless of whether Madam was the one who did this, husband wanted to absolve Madam. Thus, she had to admit it no matter what. Even if she did not admit it, she had to swallow her pride and admit it. Chapter 27-21. Moreover, even if they took 10,000 steps back, there were both witnesses and evidence. She really couldn't be unrelated to the matter of Juxian and Mei Xian climbing through the window. Concubine Shur was able to secure a position in this family and even gave birth to two daughters, so she naturally won Mu Jingfeng's heart. Arbor couldn't be bothered to watch Concubine Shur cry and beg for Mu Jingfeng's forgiveness. He pulled the crown prince and walked straight to the carriage parked at the entrance of Yulon court. Before boarding the carriage, she coldly said, It's not too much to beat such a wicked woman to death. If family head Mu's heart aches and you can't do it, this crown princess can send someone to do it for you. Mu Jingfeng and Shur Huixin both stiffened. Let alone Shur Huixin, even Mu Jingfeng didn't expect this at all. This little crown princess was actually so ruthless. It was just a small matter. Yet she wanted to beat Shur Huixin to death? Mu Jingfeng's expression darkened. Concubine Shur is in the wrong, but her crime doesn't warrant death. What's more, the two main culprits' maidservants have already been Huifeng, crown princess. Drag concubine Shur out and flog her 200 times. To a delicate and frail concubine, 200 floggings was a death sentence. Although concubine Shur had a bit of cultivation to protect herself, the ones flogging her were all great spiritual masters above level 11 in the Hidden Night Pavilion. Let alone 200 floggings. She didn't even know if she could endure 100 floggings. What are you doing? You can't do this. Concubine Shur shrieked in fright and cast her gaze to Mu Jingfeng. Husband, husband, save me, husband. Concubine, concubine. Mu Royan and Mu Royun were very anxious, and they hastily came up to drag their mother away. Huifeng rudely blocked them with his sword and coldly said, Unrelated people should all stay away. Don't obstruct official business. When the carriage moved, Concubine Shur's wretched wails had already spread. Arbor coldly lowered the carriage's curtains, not the least bit moved by her words. Jojo. Prince Mo reached out and pulled the little fellow into his arms, shaking her little body. Don't be angry, okay? Arbor was a little angry with herself. These 2 days, she should have left after receiving the compensation, but she still insisted on staying in the Mu family that didn't like her, causing the crown prince to suffer for no reason. It was bad enough that she had to suffer, but now this little concubine mother dared to bully her man. She was simply acting recklessly. I'm sorry for making you suffer. Arbor nestled in his arms obediently, feeling a little down. Crown Prince Mo was taken aback, and the messy thoughts in his mind instantly vanished without a trace. Jojo was not angry with him. Jojo was worried about him. The crown prince was so happy that he wanted to fly. He hugged the little fellow and said softly, "It's good that you're not angry with me. Why would I be angry at you?" Jojo thought about it and rolled his eyes at him. "I'm not a fool. If I don't believe you, I'll believe those gossipy girls." What was there to believe in those people? They were just a bunch of passers-by, so there was no need to pay attention to them. Prince Mo's eyes curved into a smile. "Jojo, Your Highness, His Excellency the State Preceptor's carriage is coming." The coachman subconsciously slowed down. Prince Mo, who was interrupted, frowned slightly and said in displeasure, "You even have to ask this? Go over." The two carriages, one on the left and one on the right, entered the palace road leading to Lishing Gate at the same time. However, the State Preceptor's carriage was carried by 16 people, so it moved rather slowly. When it made a big turn, it encountered the Crown Prince's carriage and had to stop. Chapter 27-22. State Preceptor. It's His Highness the Crown Prince's carriage. A servant in green followed the carriage. Seeing this, he couldn't help but frown slightly. His Highness the Crown Prince, who had caused an uproar with the Crown Princess not long after entering the capital, actually didn't care about the State Preceptor at all. He directly let the carriage pass without stopping for a moment, let alone greet the State Preceptor. Even the great emperor was not so rude in front of the State Preceptor. The servant was angry. The Crown Prince and the State Preceptor entered the palace through Lishing Gate without any hindrance. Naturally, no one dared to stop them. Prince Mo and Jojo planned to go back to the East Palace first. The little Crown Princess was travel-worn all day. She still needed to wash up and change her clothes to not lose her dignity. The State Preceptor went directly to the banquet venue, the Hall of Wuda. It was almost 5 o'clock in the evening. The Hall of Wuda was already brightly lit. The officials who arrived first had already exchanged greetings and now sat down in front of several tables. Several officials stood in the middle of the hall with their families and chatted with others. The women were also familiar with each other. Today's banquet in the Hall of Wuda was actually a late welcome banquet for the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. Those who could be present were generally officials of the third rank and above and their families. Of course, martial arts were popular in the Divine Land. People from the 6 aristocratic families and several major sects were also invited. These clans were naturally great aristocratic families that could hold their own in the outside world. His Majesty has arrived. Everyone stood up and bowed in the direction of the door, saluting in unison. Your Majesty, rise. The great emperor was in a good mood today. He just received news that the little brat and his wife had a quarrel with the Mu family and returned to the palace. State Preceptor is here. Before everyone could sit down, they hurriedly faced the door and bowed again. State Preceptor. A man slowly walked in through the door. His face was very handsome, and there was a hint of a smile between his eyebrows. He looked like a flowing wind and a swimming dragon. His entire person was like a venerable bathed in holy light. He looked to be in his early 20s, but everyone knew that the State Preceptor looked like this decades ago. No one knew how old the State Preceptor was. However, his transcendent deity realm cultivation was still very admirable and feared. No need to be so courteous. The State Preceptor spoke gently with a smile on his face. Sit down. The great emperor's mood was really good. There was even a smile on his face. The officials couldn't help but be shocked. Thinking about it, nothing good happened today to make the great emperor so happy. Family head Mu. Just as everyone's buttocks touched the stool, they heard the great emperor laugh and make things difficult for them. I heard you chased my son back? Mu Jingfeng's lips twitched as he hurriedly stood up. This Mu is terrified. The great emperor's handsome face stiffened. Could it be that, because of the ownership of the Crown Princess's mother's dowry, you have a grudge against the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess? The family head of the medical family, the Dou family, who had always been at odds with the Mu family, couldn't help but laugh unkindly. Family head Mu, you're too petty. It's natural for the Crown Princess to be ordered to collect debts. You actually chased the young couple back to the palace? That's too much. Everyone's eyebrows twitched silently. Family head Do, can you be more shameless? Mu Jingfeng's face darkened. Just as he was about to refute, he heard a voice outside the door. Crown Prince, the Crown Princess has arrived. Chapter 27-23. Everyone looked up at the same time. Both of them were dressed in black formal attire, with a circle of golden silk and red thread around the sleeves and corners of their robes. The Crown Prince's posture was tall and straight. The Crown Princess's icy appearance was elegant and natural. The moment these two entered the main hall, they immediately stole everyone's attention. Even the sound of everyone's breathing subconsciously became softer as they stared unblinkingly at the two of them. Sitting on his throne, the Emperor inexplicably felt a little stifled as he watched the scene before him. Because, regardless of whether he admitted it or not, these two little brats actually looked so compatible. It was as if time had returned to the past. He actually seemed to see his flawlessness behind them. The Emperor's gaze softened slightly. At the same time, the gazes of the various aristocratic families' patriarchs, various officials, madams, and noble ladies also landed on the couple in the middle of the hall. There were truly some who were envious, some who were jealous, some who were emotional, and some who were praising them. Amidst these gazes, Arbor only felt a scorching gaze land on her. She reflexively turned her head and met a pair of cold and heavy eyes the moment she looked up. Within those gloomy eyes, a faint green light flashed and disappeared, immediately causing her heart to feel slightly cold. More than that, a sliver of fear coiled around her heart like a venomous snake. Feeling the warmth in her hand, Arbor looked up and saw Prince Emo looking down and smiling at her. Only then did the uneasiness in her heart subside a little. But heaven knew that in that instant, she was shrieking and cursing in her heart. Not dead? Not dead? Not dead? That guy Omega Kotoku really didn't die. The body she shot to death on Seikong planet was nothing more than an unremarkable clone of that man. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't disappointed. The second young master naturally also saw the shock and disgust hidden in the little fellow's eyes, and a faint anger involuntarily surfaced in his heart. What was going on? It shouldn't be like this. She shouldn't be disgusted with him. The second young master didn't know why, but a voice kept echoing in his heart like a curse. She should be his. She was his. How could she look at him with such a hateful gaze? How could that be? Arbor's cold eyes were almost spewing out flames of anger. This Omega Kotoku, the way he looked at her now was the same as in her previous life, filled with a strong perverted possessiveness? It wasn't her imagination. This was true. Could it be that this pervert wanted to find a cage and lock her up again? At the thought of this, Jojo could not help but feel as if the blood in his body had frozen. His entire body was slightly stiff. She wanted to gouge his eyes out. She wouldn't allow this man to look at her like that again. Not allowed. The little fellow clenched his fists fiercely, looking like he was about to go berserk. Emolien immediately felt that there was something wrong with the little fellow's mood. She immediately reached out to hold the little thing's little hand and squeezed her palm to comfort her. Jojo. Arbor's nearly uncontrollable violent aura paused slightly, and he raised his head to glance at the Crown Prince with his large, watery eyes. His aura calmed down inch by inch, but his eyes looked as if they were about to be quenched with poison as he stared coldly at the young master Omega Kotoku. The eldest young master beside him saw that the situation wasn't right and hurriedly raised his hand to tug at his second brother. He coughed lightly and said, "Second brother, Jojo doesn't like you very much." Chapter 27-24. A middle-aged man with a heavy aura sitting next to the two looked up, and an intimidating aura abruptly burst forth from his body. That aura rushed straight for the Crown Princess, but before it could reach her, it was brushed away by a force emitted from the Emperor's hand. Family head Qin, why are you suddenly making things difficult for the Crown Princess? The Emperor's expression didn't change as he asked indifferently. Qin Hong laughed heartily, which clearly didn't match the gloomy expression he was looking at the Crown Princess with. This old man made a slip of the hand. "Please forgive me, Your Majesty." Made a slip of the hand? Who are you trying to fool? Just now, that powerful force was clearly aimed at the Crown Prince Consort. If the Emperor hadn't intercepted it, the Crown Princess might have already collapsed to the ground. Seekong Star Battle Squad has arrived. The eunuch's abrupt voice broke the slightly awkward atmosphere. Everyone's mouths couldn't help but twitch, and they asked each other with their gazes. Who is this Seekong Star Battle Squad? Why haven't we heard of them before? They felt that it wasn't too likely that nameless mercenary teams would be invited to such a formal palace banquet, right? Little Fatty led his team members in valiantly and spiritedly. He looked straight ahead at the Emperor on the throne and bowed in greeting. Greetings, Your Majesty. The Emperor naturally knew that the Crown Prince had invited several friends to attend the banquet. When he saw this, he also nodded amiably at them and pointed to the seats on the side, indicating for them to take their seats. Being led by Crown Prince Mo, the young Crown Prince Consort was currently heading to the first seat below the Emperor's. She suddenly paused and turned to look at family head Mu, whose face had darkened. The young Crown Princess seemed to have thought of something, and she turned around and called out to the air, Huifeng. Huifeng's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of her like a ghost. He said with a grin, "What orders does the Crown Princess have? Has concubine Shur been beaten to death?" Everyone naturally heard the young Crown Prince Consort's words clearly, and their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Huifeng hastily replied, "This concubine Shur has a life-saving pill. I swallowed it before I was beaten. His legs were crippled, but his life was saved." "Not dead?" Arbor asked in surprise. "No." Huifeng lowered his head. The little Crown Princess didn't say anything else. She pulled the Crown Prince to her seat. Huifeng silently regretted his incompetence. He wondered if the deranged Crown Prince would throw him into intensive training for a month because of this matter when he passed by family head Mu and Madame Mu. Arbor glanced at them coldly from the corner of his eyes. He didn't say a word to them and directly walked over with the Crown Prince. Everyone present, therefore, very intuitively felt that the Crown Princess and the Mu family's father and daughter were like enemies. Mu Jingfeng was so livid that his face turned green. He felt that he had completely lost face because of this Jinx's daughter. Qi Xianxian sat in front of the table, her eyes darting around as she curiously sized up family head Mu. She had heard a lot of gossip in the past few hours, and she felt that each and every one of them was incomparably explosive. Sigh. She didn't expect that she would miss out on so many exciting things after being in closed-door cultivation for so many days. It simply made her wring her hands. Qi Xianxian secretly clenched her fists and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Many things happened to Jojo, but she wasn't able to participate in them in time. Now that she thought about it, it was truly a huge pity. Chapter 27-25. After the two of them sat down, their gazes naturally met with the esteemed state preceptor sitting across from them. This esteemed state preceptor, whose entire body seemed to be bathed in holy light, smiled and nodded at the two of them, appearing to be an extremely gentle person. The young couple looked at each other, and both of them bowed to the imperial preceptor who enjoyed quite a high reputation. Arbor sank into contemplation and felt family head Qin's icy gaze land on her from time to time. She didn't remember offending this family head Qin before. If there was any enmity, it was probably the grudge of her killing his son once. Arbor recalled that day when she condensed water into ice and formed an ice arrow that pierced through Omega Kotoku's chest all of a sudden. It was as if his soul had been shattered, and he turned into a fragmented shadow. This shouldn't be his original body. Arbor took a deep breath and suppressed the raging fury in her heart. This person's gaze just now made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Madame Goen has arrived. Arbor felt a slight warmth in her palm, and she looked up at the Crown Prince's inquiring gaze. She shook her head slightly at him to indicate that she was fine. She turned around and looked at the group that entered through the door. Her graceful figure was wrapped in a crisp red brocade, and her makeup was very exquisite. She heard that this Madame Goen was in her early 50s, but her dressing was still as beautiful as a young girl's. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Madame Goen's voice could practically seep into one's bones when she spoke. The emperor nodded at her with an indifferent expression, indicating for her to take a seat. Madame Gowan pursed her lips in a smile and slowly walked towards Arbor and her husband. When she passed by the Qin estate's table, which was the head of the 6 great patrician families, her gaze intentionally or unintentionally glanced behind and landed on the livid 5th young Master Qin, throwing him a coquettish glance. 5th young Master Qin nearly vomited, looking as if he had eaten a fly and feeling extremely disgusted. Crown Prince, Crown Princess. Madame Gowan stopped in front of the young couple's table. The Crown Prince cast her an indifferent glance and nodded slightly. Madame Gowan. Crown Prince calls our country's Madame and... Isn't it too much of an outsider? Madame and said with a smile, as if there was no enmity between the two people. I'm your mother's older sister. The Crown Prince and Crown Princess can just call me Aunt. I'm not familiar with you. The little Crown Princess replied coldly. She was currently in a bad mood, so how could she be willing to waste her breath on this woman? Madame Gu's face stiffened. She couldn't believe that the little Crown Princess in front of her wouldn't give her any face. This was in front of everyone, right under the eyes of the great emperor, yet he dared to be so disrespectful to her aunt. Wasn't he too arrogant? Gowan Gu's face darkened. He looked coldly at the little Crown Princess and thought, You refused a toast only to drink a forfeit. I didn't want to make things difficult for you at this time. But now, if you don't know how to appreciate favors, then you'll be unlucky to make a fool of yourself in front of everyone. When Madame Gowan thought of this, the smile on her face deepened. She stared at the young Crown Prince Consort with a smile and said in a soft voice, Crown Prince Consort, I heard that you have a 3-trial agreement with the Emperor. You haven't passed the 3rd trial yet, right? The little Crown Princess glanced at her coldly. Can you not pinch your throat when you speak? It's as unpleasant as a rooster's crow. This Crown Princess isn't a man and doesn't need you to be so pretentious. Eft. Chapter 27-26. One of the officials spat out a mouthful of wine, and a few more people in the hall pretended to cough to cover up their laughter. You! Madame Gowan's face turned green with anger. This Crown Princess was too straightforward. It was infuriating. She had interacted with all kinds of people in the past 50 years, but she had never seen such an infuriating young lady. Good. I wanted to give you some face, but I didn't want you to lose too badly. Since that's the case, there's no need to give her any face at all. Madame Gowan thought to herself with a cold face. Gowan. The Emperor frowned and called out to her unhappily. The 3 questions could have been tested privately. It wasn't appropriate to bring it up in today's setting. If the Crown Princess won, the Emperor would feel like he had been slapped in the face in public. If the Crown Princess lost, his son would definitely not give him face. In any case, the Emperor felt that it was inappropriate no matter what. Madame Gowan brought up the test regardless of the timing, and the Emperor was somewhat dissatisfied with her. However, Madame Gowan was already in a difficult position. She had already mentioned the 3 questions. Could it be that she could scram back to her seat now and ignore what she said earlier? Obviously not. She could only ignore the Emperor's oppressive gaze and brace herself to continue. Crown Prince Consort, do you dare to accept the 3rd question in front of everyone? With a cold expression, the young Crown Prince Consort sized her up and said bluntly, How big of a face do you think you have? You dare to make me accept your test? Who do you think you are? Everyone. The Imperial censors chuckled in their hearts. Thinking back to that time in the Imperial study, the young Crown Princess even dared to rebuke the Emperor, let alone a mere Madame Gowan. She really didn't know what was good for her. Gowan back down. The Emperor couldn't help but say. He really couldn't bear to see Gowan continue to be stupid. Madame Gowan turned and looked at the Emperor with grievance. She bowed and said, Your Majesty, Gowan heard that Your Majesty still can't make up your mind about the 3rd question. Gowan is just being kind and wants to share Your Majesty's burden. The Emperor wanted to slap this woman to death. Share your worries, my ass. We didn't say that we were going to test the Crown Princess now. Today's banquet was to welcome the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess, as well as to introduce them to the ministers and aristocratic families. There was no need to test the crown princess on such an occasion. But now that the National Security Bureau had brought it up in public, it was really difficult to back down. I still need to think about the questions. The great emperor braced himself and tried to shirk the responsibility. Unexpectedly, Madam of the National Security Agency, who usually knew how to read people's expressions and was sophisticated and tactful, had to compete with the crown princess today. As if she didn't understand the emperor at all, Madame Gowan nodded and said, "Gowan has a good idea here. As everyone knows, the National Security Agency is an expert in perfumery. If the crown princess can crack the fragrance created by the National Security Agency within 2 hours, then it will be considered that the crown princess has passed this test. What do you think, Your Majesty?" Madame Gowan suggested with a smile, as if she really wanted to help the great emperor solve his problems. Her face showed some sincerity. "We don't think so. Although he secretly wanted the young crown prince consort to lose a match, that was only in private. How could he want his own son to lose face in public because the crown princess lost the competition?" The emperor's warning gaze landed on Madame Gowan's face. Chapter 27. The faint pressure in those eyes made Madame Gowan slightly apprehensive. She secretly cursed. She wanted to slap the young couple's faces so much that she completely forgot about the emperor. But now the words had already been spoken, and it was hard to take them back. She couldn't admit defeat, or else it would be slapping her own face. She could only brace herself and say, "Does the crown princess dare to challenge me?" The fragrance made by Gowan might cause hallucinations, but it might also make one's body feel comfortable or uncomfortable. If the little crown princess couldn't dispel this fragrance, it was very likely that she would make a fool of herself in public. Madame Gowan couldn't help but feel smug. After saying that, she smiled and looked at the little crown princess, waiting for her to fall into her trap with certainty. Young people, after all, were full of youthful vigor. They definitely wouldn't be able to withstand her provocation. Unexpectedly, the little crown princess only glanced at her indifferently. "You want me to smell the fragrance and dispel it? Must I do as you say? On what basis? You're quite shameless, daring to chirp in front of me. Scram." Everyone was instantly speechless. These words were really straightforward. Just by looking at Madame Gowan's expression, one could tell that she was about to explode from anger. On the side, family head Do swept a glance at the juniors sitting behind him, and his gaze landed on 2 outstanding youths. He suddenly thought of something and asked in a low voice, "Femian, Fenghua, you two are also from Sikong planet. Did you know the crown princess in the past?" Family head Do felt that he had truly discovered the truth. Looking at the 2 children from the branch family who looked like they had eaten dirt, they must have suffered a lot in the hands of the little crown princess in the past. Do Fengmian couldn't help but nod weakly, thinking, "Luckily, Feng Qi and Feng Yao are in closed-door cultivation and didn't come over. Otherwise, if they saw the little crown princess, they might start cursing again." Family head Do looked doubtfully at Do Fengmian and her brother and asked a bit nosily, "You know that Sikong planet battle team too?" "We don't," Do Fenghua said indifferently. Then, she didn't even need to guess and said, "The crown princess was probably too lazy to think about the name of this team and casually came up with it." Family head Do, in that case, the little crown princess was indeed a carefree person. Cough. Family head Do still wanted to talk to the 2 branch family children, but seeing that they didn't look happy, he couldn't help but shut his mouth. She wasn't even in the mood to chat. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't at this moment. The Do brothers were silently cursing in their hearts. "Who the hell wants to chat with you? Of all things to chat about, the little crown princess, there's no point in chatting. Whoever wanted to mess with the crown princess could do so. It had nothing to do with the brothers anyway." "Gowan," the great emperor said impatiently. "Sit down." Madame Gowan clenched her fists tightly. Just as she was feeling tired of fighting alone, a bright female voice came from behind her. "The crown princess doesn't dare to accept Madame Gowan's generous offer? What does this mean?" Zhongli Jiwei said with a smile, "Is the crown princess afraid to fight?" The young crown princess's gaze swept over Zhongli Jiwei's face, then turned back to silently look at the crown prince. Prince Mo. He instantly understood the young crown princess's meaning. It's your fault. The Zhongli family's girl made things difficult for Jojo because of you. This person was like a dead dog, always biting onto her and not letting go. Annoying. Xiao Xiao thought about it for a moment and decided to kill the annoying fly. Chapter 27-28. You want to set the exam questions on behalf of His Majesty? Arbor coldly looks at Zhongli Jiwei. Or you? She looks at Madame Goen. Both of them don't dare to answer casually. What do you mean by setting the exam questions on behalf of His Majesty? How can they have such great ability to do something on behalf of His Majesty? Xiao Mu stood up. For a moment, all the sounds in the main hall inexplicably disappeared. The great emperor sits upright on the throne. When he sees the little crown princess stand up and walk to the center of the hall, the corners of his eyes can't help but twitch. Very strangely, he actually feels that something very tragic is about to happen. Royal father. The young crown prince consort's shout caused everyone to silently lower their heads and inwardly convulse with laughter. Cough, you say it. The great emperor feels that he still needs to explain, so he says, the matter of the exam questions was not leaked by us. It must be the people below who didn't keep their mouths shut and spread this news to the Goen. However, there are many people in the palace, so it's understandable. Prince Kong chokes. He pretends to pick up the teacup and takes a sip, suppressing the trace of laughter in his eyes. His Majesty is actually a bit timid in front of the little crown princess. It's said that His Majesty summoned the little crown princess before and originally wanted to give her 3 exam questions to make things difficult for her. In the end, he was slapped in the face by the little crown princess. She solved the 2 questions with unusual ease, so the great emperor left the 3rd exam question. The great emperor probably still doesn't know the little crown princess's identity as a talisman master and alchemist. She doesn't need to rely on her family. She can defeat all the noble ladies of the imperial capital's aristocratic families with her own strength. Prince Kong decides to sit and watch the situation unfold. Arbor looks up at the great emperor. Since Madame Goen wants to overstep her authority and test me on behalf of Imperial Father, she should pay the corresponding price, right? The great emperor subconsciously blinks, trying hard to understand the little crown princess's meaning. She tested me to smell the fragrance, so I have to test her and let her smell my fragrance. The little crown princess says with a serious face, "This is called politeness demands reciprocity." Was this the meaning of reciprocity? Everyone thought with a confused expression. You know how to mix incense too? The little crown princess shook her head solemnly. The great emperor was speechless. Then why did you let them smell the fragrance? It doesn't matter if I know how to make perfume or not. I just want to smell my fragrance. The great emperor coughed lightly and turned to look at Madame Goen. Goen, do you agree to the little crown princess request? Why not? Madame Goen was arrogant on the surface, but she was laughing crazily in her heart. Was this crown princess stupid? She actually wanted to compete with her in perfumery? Ahahaha. Then, she would let her have a taste of her power as the Madam of the National Security Agency. Goen flipped his hand and took out a small purple-gold cauldron from his inner world. Arbor stared at the furnace in her hand and frowned slightly. It turned out that the cauldron used to cure His Majesty's head wind disease was given by this woman. Treating the symptoms but not the root of the problem was useless. Wait, Prince Mo suddenly said, "This crown prince will bet 50 million spirit coins on my wife winning." Everyone immediately burst out laughing. Your Highness the Crown Prince, you're too funny. Where's your aloofness? The funniest thing was that Prince Kong, who usually didn't smile, suddenly slapped the table and stood up, saying, "This prince will bet 30 million on the crown princess winning." The imperial censors didn't want to ridicule him anymore. In the hall, the crown prince took the lead to bet, and Prince Kong immediately followed suit. Prince Jianpane immediately went up against the crown prince, betting 10 million spirit coins on Madame Goen winning. Chapter 27-29. Dear members of the royal family, can you be any more ridiculous? Can't you all lead a good start? The great emperor waited for everyone to finish placing their bets before he secretly called Eunuch who was waiting at the side, to secretly take out 30 million spirit coins and bet all of it on his son. Hu Dequan wiped his sweat and put on a hopeless expression. He held the spirit coins and ran to the crown prince's side to place his bets. Everyone placed their bets in full swing. Eunuch who led a group of young eunuchs and counted the number of spirit coins placed by both sides with a dumbfounded expression. He didn't know if he didn't count, but after counting, he got a shock. Everyone present was indeed super rich. It was no wonder. If these people weren't the royal relatives, third-rank officials and above, then they were the heads of various aristocratic families and sections. The young masters and young misses were also all rich goods. Both sides bet as high as 800 million. It was just that the bet on Madame Gua's side was 3 times that of the young crown princess side. By the time the young eunuchs finished counting the bets, an hour had already passed. All the courtiers didn't eat or drink anymore. They all crowded around Eunuch who to see the amount they calculated. Prince Kong slapped his thigh and laughed out loud. My bet took up about 15% of the total bets. After winning later, I'll get at least 60 million from the other side. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Just thinking about it made him so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Profit, profit, profit. Everyone's mouth twitched. Prince Giant Pain at the side couldn't help but say in a low muffled voice, Big brother, you're saying it as if the crown princess will definitely win. Prince Kong glanced at his youngest brother. That's right. I'm especially confident in the crown princess. I want to raise the stakes. A resounding voice suddenly drowned out everyone's voices. Everyone turned to look. It was Prince Giant Pain and Mo Kuan. They couldn't help but subconsciously wipe the sweat on their foreheads. Prince Giant Pain took out a spirit coin card and threw it in front of Hu Dequan. At 20 million, Prince Giant Pain only felt his eyelids twitch violently. This son of a bitch, he had already bet 5 million just now. Adding 20 million now, wouldn't it be 2,500? This was too exaggerated. He had invested all of his life in this. The more you bet, the more you win. Prince Giant Pain arrogantly raised his chin and snorted. I bet on the crown princess to win. Everyone was stunned. This crown prince of Giant Pain is really here to be funny. He had placed his bets on both sides. Although he did not seem to be on good terms with the crown princess, deep down, he actually felt that the crown princess would win. Hence, he placed a huge bet on the crown princess. Even Prince Mo couldn't help but secretly twitch his eyebrows and raise his hand to rub his forehead. Eunuch who shouted, all right, princes, clan heads, and lords, please place your bets and leave. All right, it's over. You can't raise the stakes anymore. Eunuch who shouted. The great emperor couldn't help but have a headache. His personal eunuch had fucking become a gambler. On the crown princess side, she had more than 200 million in her capital pool. The crown prince had 5,000, Prince Kong had 3,000, Prince Giant Pain and the Dou family had 2,000 each. Qi Xianxian and the rest had jointly placed 40 million, while the great emperor, the state preceptor, and the Qin estate had placed their bets. Several imperial censors, Prime Minister Gao, and the other lords had placed their bets for fun and only took up a small portion. In total, there were only a few dozen people on the crown princess side who placed their bets. Everyone else had all placed their bets on Madame Guan to win. After all, Madame Guan was really skilled at making incense. No one wanted to lose money. In any case, they were familiar with Madame Guan. As for the crown princess, they didn't know how capable she was. Chapter 27-30. Madame Guan reveals a faint smile, glancing at the crown princess and saying, Crown princess, I'm sorry, but there are more people buying here. If it were someone else, they would really be embarrassed. Unexpectedly, this little crown princess looks at her expressionlessly. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. The fewer people buying, the more money we get. Everyone can't help but be speechless. Crown princess, you should be a bit more modest. You speak as if this pool is all your money. Prince Kong laughs loudly. That's reasonable, that's reasonable. Madame Goen, who placed a bet of 90 million, moderately maintains a smile on her face, but in reality, she wants to pinch the little guy in front of her to death. She's not afraid of the wind spraining her tongue. Then Crown Princess needs to be careful. Madame Goen sneers, putting the little purple gold cauldron on the table at the side. Madame Goen fans the little cauldron with a coquettish smile on her face. She takes out a small jade box from her bosom, using her fingernails to pick out a bit of creamy paste, and flicking it into the little cauldron. She dips her hands into the basin at the side, then takes out 2 other jade boxes the size of rouge boxes. She takes out some creamy paste from each box and puts it into a clean little bowl. She uses the spring water from the bottle to pour it into the bowl and evenly stirs it with her fingers. As she does these things, Arbor looks at her expressionlessly from the side. Then she says, "Hurry up!" The corners of Family Head Dou's eyes twitch, and he almost bursts out laughing. Why does the little crown princess look more and more funny the more he looks? Emolien is very helpless. She steps forward a few steps and holds the little guy's hand, muttering, "Jojo, this is normal speed. Don't use your abnormal pill refining speed to measure others." The little guy blinks and silently shuts up. It's just that the more he looks at this person, the more sluggish her movements become. After the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, she's still grinding the creamy paste in the little bowl. He watches her take out a small porcelain jar again and use a small pestle to stir the powder inside. Arbor can't help but roll her eyes. More than an hour later, Arbor was about to doze off in her seat. Finally, she heard Madame Goen calling her. "Crown Princess, you can come up and smell it." It was really not easy. It had been almost 2 hours, and this Madame of the National Security Agency had only finished her perfume. The little fellow couldn't help but feel energized. He blocked the Crown Prince, Qi Xianxian, and the others behind him and quickly walked up to the Madame, who had a slightly strange expression on her face. She looked like she was waiting for a good show, as if she was sure that Jojo would fall for it. Arbor's stoic face darkened. He approached the small purple gold cauldron and sniffed it twice. It was a sickeningly sweet smell. "Your taste is too sweet," the little crown princess criticized. "Are you trying to kill me?" Madame Goen's beautiful face turned sour. She didn't want to talk to this infuriating little guy. Anyway, she was just waiting to see her make a fool of herself. However, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes passed, and the little crown princess looked at her expressionlessly. You come closer and sniff more." It must be because the fragrance wasn't enough. The little crown princess followed her instructions and sniffed a few more times. After a few minutes, there still wasn't any reaction. Madame Goen became anxious. She held the cauldron and said to the crown princess, You sniff more. It's useless even if I drink it. It's useless to me." The little crown princess said impatiently, "All right, it's your turn to sniff." She didn't seem to be mixing the perfume, but just lightly flicked her little sleeve. A faint smell, like smoke, entered Madame Goen's nose. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.